the meeting board at 8:40?
I can be cut out, Sharon.
You got too much chatting in there.
Too many people in here? No, we have 10. Don't we?
So this meeting will now come to order.
Yeah.
Just, since we haven't started yet, I have to be with Shelley at 9 o'clock. Sherry and Chuck are back, so if you're gonna run over, I have to be up in this hearing at 9 o'clock, so they're gonna do the budget.
Madam Chair, it might be a good idea to have financial services and the sheriff swap their positions.
Okay, that would be fine.
I have to.
Oh,
Does that work?
yes.
'Cause
Have we done the roll for the point of?
No, not yet.
Oh, now I can see people. Good. Thank you.
Okay.
So let's make sure you can screen them, Sharon, so that they can see the presentation at home. Unless the commissioners at home, I know I've got to have it live, going live, John.
Yeah.
I've got to have it to go live, so that's why you're not seeing the people, I'm sorry.
We're not live yet?
We are now, yes.
Okay.
But I got to switch my presentations because we're switching the sheriff to financial services.
Okay, I need somebody to call the meeting to order, please.
We
The
did.
meeting
And I
is now
need to
called
know
to
who's in the
order.
room.
Okay.
Okay,
So Mamie just called the meeting to order,
At 8.
8:42.
thank you.
So why don't you everybody just go around and say your name so that Sharon can see. that
Well, let me
you're-
do roll call. Annette,
Okay, all right. Okay,
because we gotta do roll call to be legal.
go ahead.
Here.
In the room.
Thank you.
You are here.
I'm present on Zoom.
Freely,
Here on Zoom.
Harrison. Harrison,
He is not here.
if he shows up, please somebody advise me if you leave or come in.
Okay,
Hugo,
Here on Zoom.
Engelman,
he is not present.
Majerick,
He is not present.
Meeks,
Here. I'm present.
In the room.
Scott's in the room? I
No,
can't,
Scott is not present. Meeks was saying he's in the room.
okay, and Scott's not present?
No,
No.
Volrath,
I'm in the room.
Yarborough,
Present, in the room.
Elliott,
he is not present.
Madam Chair, you have 7 present, 5 absent. And always please say who's in the room and who leaves for me.
Okay,
Thank you.
Say again what you just said.
she just wants us to make sure that we let her know if somebody leaves, or when, who's in the room, and if somebody leaves the room, she's got to note that in a minute.
Okay, thank you.
I'm trying to change that one.
Don't
We
need
begin
to.
with the agenda. The,
How are you, Bill?
Saw you on the news last night, Paul.
Did you?
Yeah.
the first presentation
Oh,
we'll
you
have will
mean on
be
the commercial for,
Sheriff Bailey. You make the first presentation.
oh, we're ready?
What you going to do?
Do we got Chuck?
Wait, hold on, could I switch my?
I gotta switch out my presentations now, but I have it ready to go. Sure, there you go.
All right, my part is gonna be real short because I have to get upstairs to meet with Shelley. Chuck and Sherry are gonna go over. I just wanted to let you know, we work very hard on this budget like we do every year. Meeting the 2019 guidance, we couldn't do that and still continue on with our operations. They're gonna go into detail about, contracts for services and stuff, which caused us to not be able to meet it, and some of the things we need to do for our day-to-day operations. So we're 367,188 over guidance. The road patrol, 40,746, and the jail, 98,954. But, you know, Chuck is gonna go in, you know, some of those, if we'd have met the 2020 guidance, we'd probably be right there, but 2019, I also wanna let you know that since we've had COVID-19, as you take a look at the jail and our food service that we have there, we have saved money this year because we've had less inmates. So as you take a look and saying, hey, you didn't spend all this year, let's cut that. Well, we're already working our way back up. You know, I think we're at 260 something this morning inside the jail. So it won't be long and we'll be back up to our normal capacity. So, you know, as you look at it and you try to, you know, say, hey, what can we do to, you know, we didn't spend this much money, understand that that food line item is down because we've been as low as 137 inmates inside our jail during this COVID-19. So I'm gonna go upstairs because Shelley and I have to go over things, but I wanna thank Chuck and Sherry for the hard work they did on this and all our other lieutenants and our chief deputy and our captains that helped us put this budget together to come up what we need for 2021. And a very detailed list about the things and the reasons why we went over, and Chuck will go over that with you during the budget hearing, and I'll come back as soon as we're done with this Zoom meeting upstairs.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you, sir. And now, Sheriff's Department, Chuck Hyde, and the lady's name?
Sherry Vance.
Sherry Vance.
Oh, I couldn't see, Sherry. Sherry Vance, will continue with the sheriff's, budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Annette, this is Chuck. Are you controlling the PowerPoint there? Can we go to the next?
I am, yes, and Ben's doing the one in the room and I'm doing the one on Zoom.
Okay, so if we can move, or I can share my screen if it's already up there for him, if we can go to the next slide.
There we go.
Okay. So again, part of what was listed is the purpose statement. That's basically our mission statement for the sheriff's office. It's listed there under some opportunities, obviously, to continue to serve the residents of Marion County by providing exceptional law enforcement services. Obviously, as we look at funding opportunities through the Emergency Management Office, if there's additional COVID-19 funding and other public safety grants. Part of our risk and issues is continue to deal with the unprecedented times due to the current pandemic and not knowing where that's going to go in 2021, and also the social issues throughout the country that are affecting our area. Then if we can go to the next slide. Yeah, so part of what the sheriff mentioned is obviously we looked at the budget and the guidance trying to meet the 2019 where we could. We understand it's not personnel, but for the non-personnel items. So we started with that as, you know, what we could do. If you look at the bottom down there where it says, do we meet the guidance? No. That's $367,188 that were over the 2019. And if you look at that, that's the overall budget. That's special fund, general fund, and everything combined. So we'll get into in the next slides kind of more detail. And then obviously at the end, I know there's time for questions. But that's the overall budget, including everything, special fund, general, and capital projects, which we'll talk about. Ben, can we go next?
Just stop, would you stop a minute?
Hang on,
Sure.
Chuck.
Yeah, this, keep it on the first page so we can understand what we're looking at. So I can understand, because you're moving fast. The 2020, that last column, where's 2021? Where's what you want?
2021 is the third to last column. The
Hey, can you go
proposed,
back
the
to the next
2021.
Proposed, thank you, that's all where I'm looking.
And then the guidance says versus 2019 actual.
Okay,
So
yeah.
the next column over is the change from 2019. We coded it red and green.
20.
And then the same thing with just so that you can see it versus 2020 adopted budget.
Thank you, I just didn't know what I was doing. Continue.
Whoop, we lost it. So Commissioner Yarborough, good point on that. If we look at the materials and supplies, obviously personnel costs we don't have a lot of control over. But if we go to materials and supplies, our 2021 proposed budget was $1,480,648. That was $101,000 above the 2019, which is what we're requested to do, but $49,000 less than 2020. So it's less than our previous year, but it didn't meet that 2019 guidance that we were given. And if you go to the same thing for purchased services, which we'll get into, and where that goes. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you.
Then if we can go to the next one. So the 152,425 that you see at the bottom, this is the general fund. This is, the jail, the road, the majority of our operation. We obviously have a lot of special fund costs we'll get into, but so the general fund itself, we were 152,425. So if we look back up, personnel costs are listed there, but there's not a lot we can do, and the guidance was to meet 2019 the best we could outside of personnel costs. So if we look at material and supplies, we were requesting in 2021 $1,266,875. That is 47,896 above what was the actual spent in 2019, and it's 18,525 less than our 2021 proposed budget. And if we go down, purchase services, which are a lot of contracts, costs that we're given from Chris Swihart due to maintenance agreements, technology, and that it makes up a lot of the purchase services and charges. That's a lot of the contracts. So we were 104,529 over, and still over from what 2020 was. So again, the bottom line where we had some had some savings, it's 152,425 overall in the general fund. And then we'll break
We have
that.
a question, excuse me, we have a question from Commissioner Pickering.
Sure.
Chuck, help me with this chart. Now it's getting confusing to me anyway. Let's just look at the line of personnel costs. Just personnel costs. You were asked under budget guidance to meet 2019 actual. Is that correct?
Except personnel costs. We were asked to meet 2019 and everything but personnel because we don't have control over if there's raises that were negotiated or a position that was approved.
Okay.
So,
All right. I think you just answered the question, and you didn't say that earlier, so I'm glad you did. What I want to look at is the honesty of that bottom line 152 on the overall Berrien County budget. You are not $152,000 over budget guidance. You're somewhere in the millions over.
The budget guidance was given based upon items that they could quote unquote control, excluding wages and benefits. That would be the purchase services and charges line. That would be the materials and supplies line.
Well,
also capital outlay and projects they can control.
okay, that's another good clarification, and this is why we're having the discussion now, so it's clear as we move forward. So thank you for your patience on that. I guess I'm a little just interested from a budgetary standpoint. Why can't they control their personnel costs?
Well,
I mean, we've got contracts and things like that, but, if this were a business and we were in the kind of shape we were in and we were trying to meet objectives across all segments of our business, I'd be saying, all right, you got contracts, that takes your costs up. Get rid of something else to meet the guidance. But that wasn't the game we played this year.
That's correct.
All right, very good, thank you. Thank you for your patience, Chuck.
Yep, so Commissioner Chickering, part to get to yours, so the personnel costs are on the top up there, and as we just discussed, that was not part of the guidance in there. I can tell you, when you look at that cost to meet that, that is truly personnel. So you're right, if we want to get that, it would be eliminating positions. So that is, where that would be heading. If we're looking to be able to come close to 2019, we would be eliminating positions. So as we move forward, exactly right. I'm not saying the overall budget. What we're dealing with is but the ones that are listed below there that make up kind of what we have in our control, unless we get into eliminating positions, which would be another discussion.
Great, Chuck, thank you very much, and Doug, Brian, thank you for clarifying that, and I now have that as part of the rules we set going in. Thank you very much.
Okay, Chuck, hang on a second for me. So I'm getting some complaints from the people that are on Zoom that they're getting a lot of feedback. So on that microphone in the middle of the table, I'm gonna change that to red. When you guys need to speak or wanna say something, wave at me or something, and I'll turn it to green so that then you can hear, the people on Zoom can hear you, but I need them to be able to hear what's going on. So there must be a lot of background noise in here, okay?
Just as a follow-up to that discussion, just some general thoughts on what we're trying to do with this budget is we are doing our very best as staff to avoid the layoff of any full-time staff. What we've asked our various departments to do is scrub their spending to the best of their abilities. If we get to the point where full-time staff are being impacted, that is the absolute worst case scenario for us. We've been trying to work through various projects that are essentially wants versus needs. One thing that the finance team did is work with the various departments looking at old, open, vacant positions that we've been carrying on the books, both as an expense as well as an unfilled position, and scrub those requests. We had examples of the better part of a few $100,000 that was essentially reserved for vacant positions that at times were as old as 800 to 1,000 days old. So that's what we've been trying to do, is scrub the budget, looking for those areas for savings. I just wanted to offer that as some general thought.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Can you hear? I can't hear what's going on there, so I'm not sure if you can hear me. And that if you can shake your head if we're still on.
Yes, you're good, Chuck. We can hear you. I was muting the room so that there's not a lot of background noise.
Right. So
Okay.
I will keep going unless I hear otherwise. And, please stop if there's any questions on the way. And we do have a section at the end for questions. So Ben, could you please go to the next slide? So this is the special revenues. So we looked at the overall was the 367. We looked at what the general fund was in the last slide. This is the special fund revenue, basically special funds. So one thing that's in this, if you look at it, is each year we put in for capital project requests. We know that usually not all those get approved. We're identifying what we find as a need for the department, and those are all obviously always given priority into what gets approved or not. So when you look at this page, and if we go again to the 2021 and go down from personnel, you're going to see the maintenance and supplies. That was 53,365 over the 2019, but it was 31,416 under our 2020 budget. And the same thing next to that, purchase services. It's over the 2019, but it's just a little bit 3,063 under the 2020 that we had. One of the bigger ones is capital outlays, including projects. And you're going to see that is out of that 214, 163,427 is the capital projects. And we can show you what that amounts to. We know that not every year everything gets approved. Some things get denied, some get pushed off to a future year funding. So right now that's the request as it is, but we know that that does not always get approved. So that number may seem inflated right now based on the 163,427, which was over capital projects. But we know there's going to be discussion regarding those. Any questions, Annette, that you see on?
I think you're good.
Okay, Ben, can we go to the next slide, please? So this is basically an overall of the exceptions, and it puts it in percentage of where we're at based on the major account groups. that were in there. We've got a little bit of a description down there. Part of what, especially for the jail, the material and supplies, include an increase of food, like the sheriff said. You know, if our numbers stay the way they are now, we're in good shape. We don't expect that would stay that way through 2021, and we don't have really control over that. You know, as that increases, 80 new mattresses that need to be replaced, and then some of the clothing for the women. The other big part is a 3% increase for our medical services contract for the jail. And then when you see the increased number that we have listed there for tether, the good thing about that is that means more people are in tether and we're getting more revenue. So right now our tether numbers are up because of, you know, with the COVID-19 and judges look at some alternative sentences to try and keep the jail population down. If that continues, you know, that's great, but that a lot of times doesn't, you know, if we have the room and as the inmate population grows. Then if we go to the next slide. So this is where we talked about the capital projects. So we've got on here, you know, everything we put in for. I'll try and briefly just go through this real quick. The Axon fleet, as you know, we've looked at over the last year or two, our mobile cameras in the cars is outdated technology and really needs to be replaced. IS is concerned, Dale Backus, who's assigned to us, in being able to get the parts in that for that. So we looked at Axon, which is our body cameras, and if we upgraded to that, it would help a lot with, you know, the ability to redact and the two systems working together. The next one is basically something from the bomb team. It's an item that goes with the robot we already have, and the next one is a video scope. So both those two next ones were requested by the bomb team. The fourth one, we've had discussions with this over the years. We do not have a boat right now assigned to Paw Paw Lake. We're using an old skiff and the river boat we had, because the Paw Paw Lake boat was taken out of service due to, you know, the quality and basically, you know, the fiberglass being, you know, waterlogged. So we again have that in there, what a replacement for Paw Paw Lake would be. The next one is the two outboard motors for the Sea Ark, which was purchased by a grant in 2005. So that's replacing the two outboard motors on that boat. The next one, the box truck, is for our evidence techs and evidence and accident reconstruction. We call them crash reconstructionists. Todd Rainey has looked at the vehicle we currently use. It needs to be replaced, so we have that in there. The next one are the helmets for the True Team, based on, you know, Kevlar, and when those come up for being replaced, we replaced the body armor this year. This would be the request for the helmets that go along with that. The next one is that we're looking at replacing the duty firearms, and we can get into that probably in some future discussions. There's an issue with you know, 40 calibers, which we're shooting now, not being available to be replaced. So we are looking and doing some testing coming up of 9mm, and obviously that would be discussed in greater detail. And then the other one is the radio upgrades. The 5 Chevy Tahoes are the normal fleet replacement, what we've worked with Todd Rainey on. And then the 2 mules are replacing the Polaris Rangers we've had since, I believe, 2007, that were also purchased through a Homeland Security grant that need to be replaced. And my screen is cutting off, but I believe at the bottom is also the backup for the Niles Court. That's the EOC that's been talked about in the Niles Courthouse, to have a backup location. And there's a figure there for that. So that's the capital projects we have. We know that those don't all get approved. And that's where you saw the money that was in there, that we were over the 160,000 was based on, you know, these requests that we put forward.
All right, Chuck, hold on, Commissioner Chickering.
Sorry, Chuck, this is another one of these learning moments, but Brian, are we, as Chuck just said, these are going to go into a pot of capital projects, and you and your team will work through which ones get implemented,
Yes.
which ones don't, and that is a standard practice across all departments?
Yes, sir. So on Friday afternoon, we started that process. We will take all of the budgets that are submitted. We will go through all of the capital plans and determine what can be funded in this upcoming fiscal year budget, what should be considered by the board as being pushed to 22 or beyond. But we will go through fine-tooth comb. We started that on Friday, and without a doubt, there is going to be hundreds of projects that need to be given consideration, and this list will be part of the overall review.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, so go ahead.
All right, then if we can go to the next slide. So this breaks down a little more of the funding was there, the 40,000. This is basically, if you look in the fine print where it says below the general special revenue, when it gives the code number there, the 3010, this is for the sheriff's office, which is the road patrol, detective bureau, basically the enforcement division of the department. So this is a little better breakdown than the, when we talked about that 152,425 that we were over, the road patrol, detective bureau, and basically the sheriff's office makes up 40,746 of that. So if we again look at, in there, it's not including, again, personnel costs. That was not part of the directive we were given. But if you look at materials and supplies, for our 2021, we're requesting $265,639. That is $18,022 over the 2019 guidance, but it's $45,296 under the 2020 proposed budget that we're working under right now. Again, purchase services, really something, I know we're asked what we can control, but a lot of that is maintenance agreements, information we'll get from IS regarding contracts and that we have. We're requesting in 2021, $181,798. That's $22,724 over 2019, and it is $19,833 over the 20. If you look at some capital outlays, we're under in both of those. When it's in green, we're under for 19, we're under for 20, and then insurance and taxes that goes in there. We're over 2019, but again, under by 43,160 in 2020. So that makes that 40,746. And again, that's the sheriff's office, which includes the road patrol, detective bureau, and the overall operation, not including the jail. Ben, if there's no other question, can we go to the next slide? So this is the other part of the general fund. Our two major general funds are obviously the sheriff's office and the jail. Obviously, emergency management we'll get into too, but obviously the jail is the most significant budget we have. So if you look at the bottom there, did we meet the guidance? No, we were 98,954 over what the guidance was for 2019. And again, that breaks that down. If we look at up in the middle part of the tablet where we have our 2021 proposed, materials and supplies, we went over some of those. The reason the mattresses and that we need. Purchase services, that's going to be, the majority of that is going to be the like 42,000 is WellPath. So as you know, we have a contract with our medical provider. We did negotiate, an extension to that will be coming to the board, here in the next month or so. We're working on, the legal team's working on that. But obviously that's continuing the medical contract we have right now with WellPath. And then cap outlays was down in both. So for the jail budget, we were 98,954 over the 2019 guidance. Any questions?
Chuck,
Yes.
I hate to do it.
That's all right. We expect it. Sherry's ready.
All right. It seems like 15 years ago, we budgeted $3 million to redo the jail. That now figures somewhere in the trillions, and we're still 2 years away from that.
I don't know about trillions with math, but.
Okay, but one of the reasons, as I recall, when we did approve that, was that all of this technology, all of this new facilities, all of that stuff was going to decrease the personnel needs to manage the jail. I think that people are nodding. tell us either what's changed or next year when the thing is finished, what's gonna happen to that number within the jail? Are we gonna achieve our savings then? What's gonna happen, Chuck?
One, it was definitely an improvement in technology and space from overcrowding, because all we're doing right now is the receiving area, and then we are doing upgrades to technology, which is the cameras and some of the safety and security. I don't ever recall that it was going to reduce staff. Where you reduce staff is if you get into building a new jail, a pod system versus a linear. So we are still a linear design. The construction, the renovation of receiving area is not changing that. So where you've seen some be able to reduce personnel costs and the operation of it is in a pod system, which would be, basically what a lot of the newer jails are going to. Ours, obviously, the 1951 edition, the 1981, were linear designs and do take more to operate it. So we're still under the same, the manpower study that was done by the DOC. I don't ever recall that personnel was cost. That may have been talked about if we ever built a new jail, but I don't ever remember personnel costs being part of that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on that?
Go ahead, Chuck.
Okay, so I will say, well, I guess while we're on this, because it is the jail and it is ongoing, and Commissioner Chickering brought up a great point about the technology. So I can tell you, and when you get a chance to take a tour when it's done, seeing the new cameras versus the old is a great security enhancement. And also once it's open, the overcrowding that we were dealing with in the receiving area, that will be taken care of when you get to see the space that we're able to accommodate the numbers we have in that. So I just want to talk about that before we move on to the next slide. So some of these are breakdowns, they're very small budgets. This was the law enforcement training facility. So again, we were fine with the 2019 numbers. We met our guidance. It was $218,000 less than, or I'm sorry, $218 less than 220, but we did meet the guidance. So it says yes and 0 down there. Next slide. Public safety equipment. When you look at material supplies, part of this I'll let Sherry look at the radios, I believe, and that's in the public safety equipment. So that is $3,472 above the 2019. And so we're $3,473 above that. That would have been included in that total 367, which was both general, special revenue, and capital projects. So that's a $3,473 increase over 2019. Next one, I'm not sure. I think we could probably scrub that dollar, but when we did it, we were $1 over 2019. I think we probably could we talked about it in ours, but it had already been sent in. I think we could make that adjustment and go to 0. And we could change that to a meeting. The requirement would be yes. So that's jail inmate rehabilitation, just kind of a refresher for some commissioners. That's some of the programming that takes place in the jail. That's Fresh Start, that's the literacy program. So that's when you see jail inmate rehabilitation. That's the cost of those programs operating in the jail. And next, thank you. Emergency management, so that's another part of the general fund. When you look at that, we were $9,251 over the guidance, working with Rocky and the staff, looking at some of the needs there. We, again, tried to look at the 2019 where we could, and we're $9,251 over for emergency management. We are at questions and answers. I've done a lot of talking. I do want to say before we get into questions to thank Sherry Vance. Sherry came to us a lot of experience taking over for Paul when we had the sudden tragedy there, and has done an exceptional job in getting this together and working on the budget. So I wanted to thank her, and some of the questions may go to her.
Thank you.
There we go.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
not to cause stress to the elected officials, but I'm going to be pushing people today to stay on target as far as their allotted time.
Okay.
If this group has questions, for the Sheriff's Department, please feel free to take as much time as you need. If there are no questions, we do have about a 15-minute gap where I could pull financial services back in and try and get us back on time.
Yes, if you would do that.
Okay,
I think if we have questions, and I read the note to us that we would ask you, you'd get the answers.
yes, ma'am.
For us all. Do you have more questions? Yes, Commissioner?
I got a question about
Yes.
personnel costs.
Please.
Over 3 years, it's about $1.5 million in 3 years. What's driving that cost up almost like $500,000 a year?
So-
Is it insurance? Is it been, what's driving that cost that high?
Union?
Yes. In a nutshell, we've got a variety of union contracts. I can get you a breakdown of how those net out on an annual basis, but to put it simply, the labor costs are driven by the union contracts. The union contracts were written years before COVID-19 happened, so the thought of actually shrinking a budget, 2 years after signing a union contract just really wasn't envisioned.
So we really can't project what it's gonna be. We sign a contract, we don't really know what it's gonna be.
You can absolutely envision at the date that we sign the contract, you can absolutely envision what it is going to cost 1 year, 2 years, 3 years out. What we've tried to do is bring you all a budget that is restricting, just given the situation with COVID-19. The budget document that you're going to be looking at is essentially 2019.
Yeah.
We're trying to pull down all capital spending and any unnecessary spending as we go into 21. Now, the ironic thing is, what you're going to see from equalization is your tax values are actually going up. The reason that we're trying to be so conservative is, if not for the CARES Act being pushed by the federal government, the state of Michigan's ability to make their payments for shared revenue would have either been diminished or wiped out. So the CARES Act is essentially making counties whole, but we don't know how much longer COVID-19 will go. We don't know if there will be a second round of stimulus spending. So we are trying our very best to bring you a budget that is significantly smaller than the current fiscal year.
Is there any kind of way that we can kind of project basically what we're gonna get this year?
Yes. Yep.
At the point, and what we're gonna be allowed to basically spend?
Yep. And
We gotta cut whatever.
nope, as we get through the day, you're going to see Warren from Equalization here. He'll be talking about his planned spending, and then he can also speak with you all about what he is seeing on essentially on the revenue side. So we will be covering that today.
Yeah,
sir.
okay, this year it's gonna be considerably different. Because of COVID-19. And revenue, like revenue sharing we're gonna get from the state, we're not gonna get what's anticipated. So I just wanna know, is there kind of way we can balance this, some kind of way, or make some cuts to come bring everything in line?
So to answer your question, we are bringing you a smaller budget because we fear that there will likely be more cuts coming. What we can tell you is that at the local level, your tax base is actually expanding. It is not shrinking. And that's the ironic thing, is we are bringing you a budget that's going to be significantly smaller while noting that our revenues are actually going up. We're doing that just out of an abundance of caution.
Yes.
Does that make sense, sir?
Well, it kind of makes sense, but it's going up, but there's gonna be some problems with people coming up with that money too.
Yes, sir.
So it's gonna go up and we might not receive it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm just kind of, is there kind of way we look and maybe come kind of get a balance?
Plus, through the CARES Act, we have, they're paying for essential services, isn't that the sheriffs and the safety department?
Yes, ma'am. So we're receiving reimbursement for our payroll tied to the courts, tied to 911, tied to the EOC, tied to road patrol, and on. So we are being reimbursed,
Yes.
which is very positive. It's just, it is truly, it's one of these times where you're putting together a budget, absolutely assuming the worst case, but knowing that on the tax side, you're actually seeing a significant increase in total revenue. Now, with that said, I'm just gonna keep watching the clock.
Do we need to talk and Sherry anymore?
I have one follow-up to Commissioner Meek's question. So one thing over the last 3 years that has changed, James can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was 3 years ago, is that OPEB was added to our budgets. So that's other benefits except pension. That was always funded out of wherever the county funded it, but now it's been tied to our budget. So that is a significant increase each year. That is kind of a legacy cost when you talk about contracts that were done many years ago. To, I would say, the Bill Wolf and the commissioner's credit over the years. There's been changes made to retiree health care. And actually, I believe it's 2013, employees currently employed after that don't receive it. So some of the OPEB costs are a different way of they've been charged. So they're now being charged to each budget, which I understand. But when you look at Commissioner Meek's questions over the last 3 years, how that's grown, in addition to insurance and benefits, the OPEB costs have gone up considerably and are a considerable increase in the personnel cost of this year as well. So I just want to make sure that was addressed.
Madam Chair?
Yes. That's Jim Curran.
Yeah,
Commissioner
Madam
Curran?
Chair, this is Jim.
Yes.
First off, let me just say that I appreciate the budget guidance by the county administrator on the conservative nature of it because of a lot of the unknown. But I do have a question for Chuck. Do you have the figure, or do you know the percent change between your 2021 proposed and your 2020 adopted? Not 2019, but 2020. The percent change, either increase or decrease. Do you have that figure by chance?
We can try and get it. Sherry's looking at it right now. So if you're talking 2021 to 2020, Commissioner?
Correct. Your overall budget.
Let me look. We had everything figured at 19 on our sheet. So let me look at that real quick and see where we're at.
Yeah, I'm just looking for the percent change between 21 and 20.
So while she's getting that, I can tell you from 19, it's a 9.5, but let me look and see. That'll be less when we look at what the 20. Okay, that may be something we have to get for you because everything we had was based on the guidance for the comparing to 2019 actual. But we can for sure get that and forward that to you.
Overall?
Yeah.
Okay.
Overall, yeah,
Yep.
I'll have to.
Yeah,
get
we
the
can grab
numbers.
that because
Now,
everything.
you just said, okay, you just said 9.5% over.
Well, that was from 2019. So it'll be less if you're looking at from what we're asking toward to 2020, that percentage will be less.
And that's a 9.5% increase over 2019.
Over 2019, yes.
Okay, yeah, I was looking for the difference between 2020.
Yeah,
Thank
and we'll get that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, go ahead, Amy. Did anybody have any other questions? Sorry.
Any other questions?
Madam
At
Chair,
home or here?
we now have 6 minutes until the next presentation. If the group is comfortable, I can have financial services go now.
Yes,
Okay.
I would like for that to happen. We will now, thank you so much.
Very short.
Undersheriff Pike and Sherry, thank you for your answers. And we may have some more things if we think of it. It will come from Administrator Bisbeck.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, ready to go?
Almost.
Okay.
Okay, yep.
Okay, ready?
Yes,
Good morning, everyone.
good morning.
We'll talk just really quickly about financial services budget. This gives you our why we exist, our mission, or our purpose statement. Also gives you opportunities and risks, and what we see as our mission And what we've always communicated was that it's really to report the data, the financial data of the organization to try to maintain it and achieve the goal of sound and prudent fiscal management. As far as opportunities, I didn't identify any at this point. Risks, I'm saying my risks are 3 different items. One has to do with my current staffing level. I at this point have 5 full-time employees, including myself. 1 open position, which was Sherry's old position. She's now at the Sheriff's Department. And then, so we are at about a minimum staffing we can be before we become very, it's reduced to the level that we don't have the flexibility and ability to respond to specific events or increased volumes. It would become problematic. The second has to do with compliance with the state, with the GASB pronouncement and the state requirements. There's a standardized chart of accounts that the state has introduced. They keep delaying it. I believe because of COVID, they will delay it again. But nevertheless, it's something that we need to look at. And then financial services or financial policies and procedures really need to be updated. We really use a narrative approach to things. And we use the handing down of that in a verbal manner, okay? So that's what we've got there. This is the budget that I'm proposing for 2021. Overall, it's a use of funds of $728,534. I do hit the red. If you go down to met budget guidance, no, I didn't meet the budget guidance. I'm $4,955 off the budget guidance. And that really comes back to the purchase services, most of it. And we'll go into that in just a second. Okay, general fund, I'm all general fund, so this is basically what you saw in the previous slide. This is where I'm showing the increase for materials and supplies. It really comes down to GFOA. We purchase a blue book, which really gives the GFOA guidance and really takes that guidance or those regulations and puts it in an easy to understand format. And in that, we purchase new copies of that as we go along. So that's a lot of my increased cost there. We did not buy it in 2019. Purchase services and charges really is driven by the Munis maintenance, software maintenance. It increases about 5% each year. That's $4,565. The copier also increased. In 2019, we only had 2 months of actual, then the lease ran out. They are looking at releasing. So that's really, the increase is due to a 12-month versus 2-month comparison. And then I tried to make decreases in other areas to try to offset, but I will tell you, and that's why I've got this underlined, any changes that are requiring professional services related to Munis forms changes, which they charge us for, or additional travel, scanner maintenance, or repairs, will need to be a contingency request. There is nothing there available.
Doug, question. 5% a year is a fairly hefty charge year over year over year. Is that sustainable to us?
That would be a better question for Chris Swihart, who is IT.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I just know that we pay the bill.
I understand.
For quite a bit. We don't pay for the payroll portion, but we do pay for the rest. Okay? Moving on, I had one capital project request, and that really had to do with a professional service with Munis. In order to, once we institute the new chart of accounts, we're going to have all of our data translated. And there's a charge for that. It's about $23,800. I've put that in the budget for the last 3 or 4 years, but they keep pushing it off. So, and that's it. That's all I got. Any questions?
Any questions? Any questions from Zoom? Any questions from this room?
No.
That rhymes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks, Doug. Beth,
Yes.
thank you.
My pleasure.
thank you.
Sharon, Commissioner Harrison entered at 9:28.
What time did he leave?
9:28, Commissioner Harrison.
Okay,
The
thank
person going from now, we're right on time.
We got community development, I believe that he's coming downstairs, so I'm gonna go ahead and work on getting his.
Is that Dan Petty?
Dan Petty, yes.
I'll get some coffee.
Hey, Dave. Thank you.
No, nobody's.
Like some coffee.
Oh, thank
I'll
you,
get
man,
some.
for these beautiful baggies.
And I'll sanitize, it's all clean, it's all good.
You see, I brought all back.
I did individual things so that we could keep it safer.
I didn't see any coffee in it on the side of the
Well,
store.
no,
Commissioner Ballrath was.
real stuff, we took care of it.
Thank you. Oh, we don't have a
I couldn't find the trash thing to throw the stuff away.
I
apologize for that.
Yeah.
I'm standing up here not knowing what to do.
So we need to get
Well,
Dan.
you know, trying to figure things
I
out.
think Brian may have gone, I'm kidding.
When you get figured
We know
out.
you're
I
charged.
want to rattle around making a bunch of noise, I just
Good, perfect.
clear it down.
We're good, you're good. Go right over there in that corner. Now, I haven't wiped that down, so if you feel uncomfortable about that, we can wipe it down.
I gotta sit in the corner?
No, you don't sit in the corner, you're gonna stand right there. Do you want the thingy?
Well, this is a strange setup. I don't know if I can handle this, guys.
All right, commissioners in this room, remember that we can't, because he's speaking, that's right, never mind, disregard. Just try to keep the extra noise down while he's talking, please.
Madam Chair? Morning, Dan.
Good morning.
Oh, here it is, right here. Need to share.
It just came out, didn't it?
Yes.
What's that?
Collateralizing public deposits.
What?
Collateralizing public deposits.
Okay, you're up on live and you're good to
I haven't
go.
read it.
All right, we're ready?
Good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Dan.
I know we're pressed for time, so let me just jump right in if you don't mind. Obviously, it's budget hearing for community development. Here we go. I'm assuming that you've all had a chance to kind of browse through this before the meeting, so yeah.
And talk nice and loud, please.
Sorry. Our opportunities going into next year, I'm actually anticipating a fairly busy year for our department in 2021. Many of the things that we were working on that we thought would happen this year were delayed. Fortunately, a lot of the projects that were delayed are starting to come back to fruition. So I suspect that 2021, we're going to be pretty busy with a lot of redevelopment projects, largely through the Brownfield Authority or the Land Bank Authority. Risks and issues, you know, it's the same that you see every year from us. It's transportation. It's a constant issue with us trying to figure out how we can create a financial and organizational structure that allows for public transportation to continue to exist on a countywide basis and expand if possible. And in fact, that's more or less what I'm going to talk about in the budget here, because that has the largest impact on the changes in our budget next year. So in terms of the overall budgets, general and special revenue funds, we did meet our budget guidance, which was, as you all know, we were supposed to reduce our non-personnel costs down to the 2019 actual levels. And you can see, I don't know how to use the pointer here, but you can see that our purchase services and charges are coming in at about $415,000 below our 2019 levels. Now, you also notice that our personnel costs are coming in $340,000 higher than our 19 levels. And the reason has everything to do with Berry and Bus, because we have internalized Berry and Bus operations. We eliminated the TMI contract, which would be the purchased services, but we had to include many of the former TMI employees as temporary county employees, which raises the personnel costs. So even though we met the budget guidance, I want you to understand it was a little bit of a trick because we've shifted costs from one category to another. Overall, we still are around the 2019
For sure on there where we shifted the cost.
I will show you, because I'm gonna show you our actual bus budget in
Okay.
particular. General fund, very simple budget. Most budgets, most general funds are pretty simple for a department our size. Personnel costs have gone up 23,000. We've been able to bring our non-personnel costs down to about $60 below our 2019 level, and that's largely because we've eliminated so many meeting costs. And we expect that we will do that into 2021. Normally, there was a time where we were spending close to $18,000 a year in our budget just for travel expenses and per diem payments to board members, because it's all being done virtually now. We've been able to reduce those costs pretty significantly, and we expect to continue doing this into 2021. Special revenue funds, you can see again, I don't quite know how to use, there we go. You see again, $414,000 reduction and a $316,000 personnel increase. These special funds include all the grant programs, the landfill use fund, Board of Public Works fund, largely just the special operating funds that we have. What you're not seeing here is brownfield or land bank. Those have to be presented at brownfield and land bank this week and next week, but they will be rolled up in your final budget documents.
That is, excuse me, one thing I would like for you to explain, what is under community development?
Oh, jeez, okay, we have the
Yeah.
Brownfield Authority, the Land Bank Authority, the Economic Development Corporation, the Land Preservation Board, the Board of Public Works, the Planning Commission, Solid Waste Planning Commission, and boy, I'm missing another one or two, I don't know.
Those landfills are, is that what you?
Yeah, we do manage the money coming in and out of landfills. It's about, we're expecting about $175,000 of free money, or free capital coming in. That goes into the parks budget, if you remember.
Okay.
A portion of it is reserved out because we have to make certain repairs to those landfills or assist in the repairs of the landfills, and the rest of it is then pushed out to the parks department. So you see $175,000 outflow through us, $175,000 income to the parks. Okay.
Thank you, thank you.
So not substantial changes from last year generally, except for Berry and Bus, and this is Don, to your point. If you see here, this was the purchased services line item. Oh. There we go. All right, that was purchased services over the last few years. That's the TMI contract. That contract's gone for next year, okay?
Okay.
What you see here is $315,000 of personnel costs that we never had before for Berry and Bus, and that represents the cost of temporary employment of our current employees going into next year. So the current roster of employees that we have at Berry and Bus, if we budgeted them out at $1,000 or 1,000 hours each, we'd be spending $315,000. But that only gets us halfway through the year. So what we also had to do is throw in this line item here, which is $451,000 in contingency, and that's there in the event that we get into, say, June or July, and these employees are running out of time, and we have no other option but to make them permanent employees for the rest of the budget year. We've put the $415,000 in there as a contingency to give us the ability to do that.
So that's about as much as you added, that's about $400,000, yeah.
Now, what we're hoping to accomplish between now and July is some kind of resolution to this organizational problem of Berry and Bus. By the end of this year, you'll see a proposal coming from us that's been reviewed partially by Commissioners Harrison, Curran, and Freeland. And the proposal is to create a contract public transit authority and move the Berry and Bus assets and personnel costs into that new corporation. We looked at trying to make these employees permanent, full-time employees of Berrien County, and it would have cost us $1.2 million a year to do that because of all of the additional, health insurance, pension, and all these other things that go into this. And that's just not, we're not prepared to make that proposal. It's way too expensive for us to do that under the current revenue structure for the buses. Now, the good news is that the federal funding for the bus system has been doubled all through this year and next year. So we are not in a financial crisis right now and moving into next year in the way that we have been in past years, where it's kind of been this process of just holding on, holding on, holding on. we're actually flush with cash, and we're gonna be fine financially next year. In fact, you see that we're not even proposing any kind of net balance here. We're not gonna be using we don't believe that we're gonna be drawing up our fund balance at all for next year. But that's good news in that it's bought us time to make some decisions. And as we talked with the BCAT team last week when we showed them the budget, what we're encouraging the commissioners to do is let's not waste the time with this additional funding we've bought us. We can carry this operation out through the year, but at some point into the middle or late of next year, we have to have some decision about what to do with the bus system. The best thing that we can come up with right now is to create this corporation, move the assets into it, and then allow the corporation to contract with other service providers and other communities to provide busing services in those areas. Analogous to the way Medic One operates, for example. In fact, we're looking at Medic One's articles of incorporation right now to see whether or not that could be a model that we would use for the bus system. This is not time to discuss all of that, I know, but I wanted to make you aware of where we stand on this budget in particular and how we're in pretty good shape for next year, and that's an opportunity for us to really, use that time to make some decisions. Okay? And then the last one I'm going to show you, you don't see this, so I thought I'd show it to you anyway. These are our enterprise funds. These are all of the debt financed activities that we run through, sometimes through Brownfield Authority, but largely through Board of Public Works. And you can see next year, as it stands right now, we don't think we're going to actually have any capital projects through Board of Public Works. I don't know before the year starts. I think in 18 and 19, I also thought we weren't going to have any projects, but we ended up doing some reasonable construction projects in the south part of the county. So what you're seeing here, I don't think you generally even see these in the budget that often. That's the debt service for the bonds that are under our control. And of course, these are the assessments that we charge to the local communities or project owners. So it always generally balances out year by year. But, we're going to see, a fairly substantial increase in our debt service next year. And that's because we consolidated all these bonds. Remember, you did a big refinancing last year, right? So that's what happens with Board of Public Works for those who haven't sat in on the meetings or been aware of it. And that is it. I know we didn't have a lot of time, but that's as fast as I can run through this with you guys. Are there any questions?
I just want to comment, I kind of like your point, because it's easy for me to follow.
Yeah, well, this is the first time I've had to use it, so.
Okay.
Covered it out quickly.
Yeah, that point did help. Yes, Commissioner Chapman.
Thank you. Dan, just kind of your own thoughts and projections. The realtors tell us that we're seeing a huge influx of people buying property here in Berrien County.
Yep.
Mostly along the shore, escaping Chicago, working from home,
Yep.
all that. We're going to see that in equalization and real estate stuff. But a lot of these people are going to need extra infrastructure to support that, let's call it business growth, home business growth. What are you and Cornerstone and all the other groups thinking about that will support this migration?
Right now, what we're thinking about is how to encourage the migration. So I can give you two answers. The first is Cornerstone.
Excuse me, how to curb it?
Encourage it. We want to see more of this. We want to see more opportunity of people. If they find that the urban environment in Chicago is no longer suitable for them or that it's not necessary for them to do their job, we'd love to have them come here. Cornerstone, I don't know that they have announced it yet, but they will be announcing a funded program that we've kind of helped create that would give inducements to people coming here and buying houses and permanently relocating. And it's largely based on we're trying to push people into certain communities that already have the established infrastructure where they could do that kind of work. One of the things we don't want to do is encourage people to come over here, move to areas of the community that lack water, sewer, broadband, things like this, and create a situation where now the public has to respond to that with a huge cost. So the idea is to try to encourage the population concentration to the extent it occurs in the areas that already have established infrastructure for that.
Great, thank you very much.
Just as a follow-up to that question, all right, I've mentioned this to Dan. In the last 2 weeks, I've met with a variety of school superintendents, and it's just been very interesting to talk about their numbers going up significantly. New Buffalo's superintendent mentioned while I was meeting with him that I think he had had just 12 new enrollees in the prior week. And it's Chicago residents that are moving to this area. Number one, they want their kids in-person schooling. And number two, there appears to be a little bit of flight.
Bill, I don't know if you were around when we were dealing with the high-speed rail issue 10 to 15 years ago, but that was another example of that. The fact that Pierre Marquette has been preserved for the time being by Amtrak also helps that, because it at least allows, it's not perfect for commuting reasons, but it at least allows an alternative commuting process for people who move here permanently but have to get back to the city from time to time. So,
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any questions from the Zoom at home? Thank you, thank you.
thank you, everyone.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
It is now 9:45 and you're exactly on time to start the road department.
okay.
So if that's all right with you?
Are they coming here?
And then have Rob share real quick.
Okay.
Okay, are they coming here or are they coming?
They'll be joining virtually.
Okay. So then let's.
I think I need a pit stop before we deal with them.
You both have coming back with the presentation. Check my real quick.
Trying to understand you.
And then have Rob upstairs get the presentation, so I'll start here.
Okay, thank you.
So for the viewing audience, what you all didn't see is our mowing crew had just started to assemble outside the windows of the conference room. And so I stepped outside to reach out to Buildings and Grounds saying, hey, can they return after lunch? It's already hard enough to hear.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, Jason and Carrie, can you hear me? Okay, so just to let you know, Annette just ran to grab a presentation file. She'll be right back. Give us about 2 minutes and we'll go ahead and get you started.
All
Sound
right,
good?
that sounds good. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Isn't there a little fine for Harrison showing up late?
I had another meeting, so this is, the way it goes.
That's a good one.
There we go. I'm gonna go to mail. And
My daughter was supposed to pop a little girl out there anytime now. She was due last Friday.
Where's she at?
She's at home now as far as I know, but she started having little contractions Saturday night and Sunday and
how are they?
going, so. We don't have a lot of girls in our family, so it's. Sorry. Can't you tell a little girl?
That's where I can go back here.
The Duke didn't look too bad that first half.
Yeah, look, we got a pretty good quarterback, I think.
I think they brought him in from Point or
Yeah,
so.
but I mean, we can't match up a program like Notre Dame, they got second and third teamers that are as good as our first line guys, and they just get worn out. And
The
they,
best shot was that first game because everybody nobody knows what's happening. Even yesterday with the NFL, there was no preseason game, so everybody's, trying to look at people on the fly now, and then all the games count, so it's.
a lot of sloppy play. And
Lives didn't change, they just find a way to lose a 17-point lead in the fourth quarter. At one point, when they were leading, they said that ESPN, their thing where they tell you what the chances are of one team winning and the other. Chicago had a 1.3% chance of winning at one point in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, but they forgot who
They stopped keeping it.
they forgot who they were playing.
unloaded it on, I'm done.
Okay. In Pontiac, or not Pontiac, yeah, Pontiac.
You guys want to hear my screen?
If you want.
Are you able to do that, Jason?
I'm gonna try right now.
If you want to vote on that.
Huh? I think just the presentation is probably the most important, but he's got those other two handouts. Oh, Jason. Yes, that works.
Is that working?
That's working. All right, Jason and the commissioners on Zoom, I'm going to mute the room again. So it'll just be to listen to Jason do his presentation. You got a question, let me know, raise your hand or something like that. All right?
Very
Go ahead,
good.
Jason.
All right, we're gonna jump right in if you guys are ready. So you did get both the handouts. There was only two. Obviously, we could have sent more, but really the main thing I wanted to do was make sure that you guys saw the information that you've been seeing over the last couple of years in the same format, just because I think it's important for that consistency. So one of the handouts is the capital outlay. We'll have a slide later about that, and obviously we can entertain questions at that point when we come to it. The other handout was our basic budget handout that you guys see obviously the last couple of years, and then when we do budget amendments, it's that same format. There is a new category. Harry, do you want to jump in real quick and explain that category?
Sure. Normally, we would have come to you guys in either June or July to do a budget amendment once we had our construction schedule kind of set for the season. But due to COVID and the transition in administrators, we weren't able to make that happen. So we've added a column for the 2020 projection and are basing our increase and decrease off of that number since there's some changes from the originally adopted budget.
And we're hoping to go to you guys in October for an amendment to kind of get everything in order. And it'll probably look very similar to the projected column that you see. And then as always, we'll do a year end in December, the last meeting to finalize the year. So two amendments coming, and obviously we missed the one in the spring, which obviously understandable. So jumping in right now, I'll go to the next slide. The opportunities, risks, issues, I think you guys kind of know what we're all about. We take the Michigan Transportation Funds, that's the MTF, and we use those funds to make sure that we have safe and efficient movement of people and goods. It's obviously infrastructure is critical to the county, to the state, to the country. You know how that works. Opportunities. So my mantra for the last, I don't know, 6 months, maybe a year, we have an opportunity to be the best road department in the state. And there is no doubt in my mind we will get there. I feel like we're already pretty darn close. But that's my goal. Risk and issues. We're going to have a slide a little bit later talking about funding, the actual road funding, where we are. That's always going to be an issue until we fix what the funding stream is and how we actually fund roads. So we can talk about that in a little bit. Some of the things we're working on right now, and Doug and I are working on this with Carrie. The cost allocation plan, we got to dial that in a little bit. There's just a couple issues out there just to make sure that we're allocating road funding appropriately. One of the things that's critical to my job and Carrie's job is to make sure that road funding is allocated to road uses. And I think sometimes that gets lost. And we don't want that to get lost, because that's something that's critically important to what we do. One of the things that's out there too is the other post-employee benefits, the OPEB. That's the insurance kind of after retirement before you're 65. Those costs are huge, and that's something that the road department road commission didn't have prior to 2018. And now, being part of the county, we actually have that cost. And that gives me heartburn. So there's some things that we need to kind of work through on that. And as we work through it, working with Brian and with Doug, Carrie and I, hopefully we can come up with a plan and obviously make sure that we keep my admin committee up to speed and keep everybody else up to speed as well. And then other issue out there is just insurance refunds. That's another, us just making sure that we're following the road funding all the way through its cycle. So as we pay for insurances and the insurance refund comes back, it's usually has a 2-year lag, that those road paid insurance funds actually make it back to the road department so they can be allocated and tracked and we can let the state treasury know about it. Let's see, a couple other issues out there. Staffing. Right now, we're a lean organization no matter what. No matter how you slice us, we are lean. We don't have extra people. I think from the maintenance standpoint, with 1,500 miles of roads and 45 maintenance employees, I mean, that's just a lot of miles of roads per employee. Right now, our biggest challenge is on the engineering side, and I just went to PHSC last week, got approval to fill an open position, which will be great if I can get somebody in there. But honestly, we will not be able to get our program out unless we're fully staffed. And right now, we're not fully staffed. We'll get a good program out, and we'll do it well. But honestly, to be able to be firing on all cylinders, we do need to be fully staffed. And that's an extra, there's an engineering position that's out there that's funded and vacant, and then an engineering technician that's out there funded and vacant. And we're going to work really hard to get those filled. And then on the emergency side of things, that's always a risk. We had a couple of them just come up recently on Holden Road and Towsley Road. Holden is open. We just finished that last week. Towsley we're doing this week. Both of those are going to be in that $10,000 category to replace. So super excited about the relationship with the drain commissioner and how we're working through those issues, and on these emergency side of things, able to get things done with our staff on the construction side, our engineering staff, and obviously working with finance, making sure we got everything tracked. So that's a pretty nice success story. But you never know when a road's when you get a flood and culvert gets washed out. So that's always in the back of my mind. So real quick, just jumping in, Act 51, that's the state law that talks about how we get the MTF revenue. That's the transportation fund revenue. And really it's two places. It's gas tax and when you do your vehicle registration. And obviously you guys have seen this slide before, that 39% of that pie comes to road agencies in the county road agencies. And then it gets divvied up. And one of the things that that our system is really basically set up for is we have to obviously report back to the Treasury every year. But those revenues, it's very complicated from the funding standpoint because of these formulas. So the bottom line is, if you see the word primary, they're talking about primary road network, that depending on what your population size is, that's 47% of the funding that comes to the county is based on population. And it's based on people that are actually registering vehicles. And that money is supposed to go to the primary roads. And then you have urban primary, you can have urban local, but this is that mix of funding that comes to us. So that's high level. You don't have to really remember any of that, other than we do track it and we do need to understand where the money is coming from, and then certainly develop a program that supports those, basically those ratios.
Ask a question. We have something different on our computer. Internal, it says one of the things is resident vehicle registration. They determine how they give us some amount of money.
There. That's where he's in.
Oh, yes. But there's some
what
Some of
slide?
the funds are based on that.
It looks like my computer messing up.
Jason,
Go ahead, Jason.
All right, can you hear me okay now? What, are you guys seeing the Act 51 internal funding distribution slide?
Yes.
yes, now we're on the same page now.
Okay.
I
So
just never do that. So you say vehicle registration, that helps the state or federal to decide, to determine how many dollars we get?
Right. So when you register your vehicle, that money goes straight into the Michigan Transportation Fund, and then it gets split based on that distribution. 39% comes to the county road commissions, and then it gets again split based on these percentages of population and primary road miles and rural, et cetera.
That's real interesting. You said population, is that the census?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. That's something. Okay, thank you.
One of the things that I bring up, this is just interesting, is as Kalamazoo County has 1,200 miles of roads, where Berrien County has 1,500 miles. So we have, 300 more miles of road, except Kalamazoo County gets $2 million more per year in MTF because they have a higher population. Therefore, they have more vehicles registered, and plus they have more urban mileage as well. So on one hand, it's a very fair formula, except if you're a spread out county that doesn't have a huge population, then you wind up with a lot more roads and not quite as much money. So that's just food for thought. Just makes my job that much more challenging, but that's okay. We're up to it. So with all that said, once we have that funding, you guys know I talk about asset management all the time. I take that asset management approach very serious, because when you do not have enough money and you have all these assets, you need to make sure you're spending that money wisely and efficiently. So you have to do the right fix on the right road at the right time. So this was just a quick breakdown of what that asset management funding looks like. And then this is what I was talking about in terms of road needs. The County Road Association put together a needs study. It's just over a year ago. And really what they came up with is all the county road commissions and road departments, minus MDOT and minus cities and villages, that the counties would need just over $2 billion annually to be able to get 90% of their roads and bridges in good condition. And right now, you guys know, you approved our asset management plan. We're shooting for 75% fair and good for roads, and we're shooting for 90% for bridges within 7 years from now. Depends if it's bridge or road. But in essence, that's just a lot of money. There's a lot of money out there that's needed that we don't have. So with that said, we're going to jump right in and talk about the COVID impact. Last year at this time, when we were in front of you talking about our budget, the state projected, the Treasury's office projected that the Berrien County Road Department should get about $18.7 million. But as they were saying that, the governor, she did not propose that there was a $600 million income tax transfer. She was not proposing that in her budget. So I didn't think it'd be a good idea to go with the Treasury's estimate when I knew the governor didn't have it in her budget and didn't really want that money to go to roads. So that was a big issue. I don't know if you guys remember it, but there was a lot of road discussion this time last year. Ultimately, that $600 million in income tax stayed in the budget, and it looked like we were on pace to potentially receive the 18 million. What ended up happening, however, was COVID-19. And with COVID-19, it turns out that our budget took a $2 million hit based on what the projection was. So we budgeted 16.7, and the current projection is 16.7. So we are right on right now, even with these reduced revenues because of the virus, we're right on budget. So we track the MTF every month. This is the distribution so far this year. And as we track it, Carrie does a nice job of helping me with graphs. I like graphs, but what we're going to show you is in February, we were up 21% pre-COVID. So we were doing great in our funding. But if you look at May, we're down 32%. That's not good. And then July, we're actually back up. That's an all-time high. So in July, we received more MTF revenue than we've ever received, actually for February as well. So this is what that looks like on a graph. The green up here, it was last year. And the purple obviously is this year. So we were doing great. That increased, it was the gas tax revenue and the income tax addition. That was a 2016 law, 2015 law that we're still working through, and that's helping us with revenues. So right now we're back. We're actually higher than we were last year. We're back to where we need to be. This huge dip right here is probably ultimately going to be that $2 million hit that we were taking, but we didn't budget that $2 million in the first place. So our budget looks like we're right on schedule. So again, here's what you guys have seen the last 3 years, we'll say, in terms of breaking it down. This is the top half of that handout. This is the revenue side of things. So 2019 actual was that 17 million. 2020 we budgeted the 16.7 because that I felt was the right number based on what the governor was saying, and the projected is right on. So that's where we look pretty good. Next year, it looks like the Treasury is projecting that 18.7, and that's the number we're going to go with. I do believe that's the right number. We're going to hit some of these in a little bit more detail as we go, but that's the summary right there. So here's.
May I ask? I'd like to ask Jason. Are you working towards the 2019 number? Isn't that what's supposed to happen? Every department is doing that. Would you talk about that?
Sure. So, Jason, the question was asked, are you working towards the 2019 budget guidance?
So from the budget guidance, like I said, our goal was to make sure that we showed the information to you that you're used to seeing, that you've seen last year and the year before. The MTF revenue and all this, all the budget information that we're talking about does not hit the county budget, does not hit the general fund of the county, is completely separate. So there's no implications whatsoever on the county's budget based on the numbers that we're showing you from the road side of it. Does that make sense?
They aren't part of the county budget. So Jason's response is true. Doug is pointing out that they do have a portion of the county budget. Jason's revenues are less impacted by our concerns about the overall county budget. What you're seeing from Jason's presentation is going to be very similar to the health department. They have an alternate and defined revenue stream that is going to be less hit than we anticipate the general fund will be.
Okay, because we only put a small amount in road.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right? In the road department. And then the rest is from grants or whatever may come.
Yeah.
Or may happen that year. Thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Are questions from this room? Road department?
Is he done?
No.
No, he's not done yet. He's got a few more slides.
Okay, come on. Continue.
Yep, so you see for the 2021 budget, we're projecting 18.7, and that's off the Department of the Treasury has sent that information to all county road agencies. Berrien County is projected to receive 18.7 from the MTF, and in that MTF are gas tax, license and registration, and that 600 million of redirected income tax transfers. And the reason why that's talked about is 600 million in redirected income tax that's in Lansing. Those aren't restricted. That's just general income tax. And that's why the governor says every now and again, you know what, I want to take that 600 million because I have somewhere else I need to put it. So that's what makes me nervous, even though the 2015 gas tax increase law that was passed based on having that 600 million redirected from income tax. By all accounts, I believe that 600 million of redirected income tax is going to stay in our budget. And if it does, that amounts to 2 million. And that 2 million gets us from the 16.7 to the 18.7. And the reason why I feel that that's the right number is MDOT, if you guys just noticed, this week, they just sold $800 million in bonds for state highway improvement. So that's a pretty big chunk of money. And the governor obviously was elected based on improving roads. Well, that $800 million in bonds is all MDOT. None of it comes to any county or any city, any village. But if I think she's behind road improvement is what I'm saying. And to take that $600 million away, I just don't think it's going to happen. So our 2021 budget is 18.7 is projected, and that's what we're going to go with. My button's not working. Oh, it did. There we are right there. Oh. So revenue on the federal state side, we're going to show, this is tricky. And this is one of the things that it's hard to track year over year because we have projects that actually span 2 years. So for example, our Red Arrow Highway at Union Pier, where we just had the groundbreaking a few weeks ago, that project we budgeted all for 2020, but it turns out it's a 2-year project. So our amendment that we're going to, budget amendment that we're going to come to you next month is going to talk about how we're going to take half of that money, half of that $3.6 million project, and we have to transfer some of that to next year because we have to finish the project next year. So there's little nuances like that based on projects either getting pushed out, getting canceled, or like last year where we had a few of the contractors go on strike and we couldn't finish our program. That was again another budget amendment that we had to explain where the money's going. So we have the Roosevelt Path in Lincoln Township. That's 100% funded through the township, by the township, no county road money going to it. But that's over $1 million project that was supposed to go this summer and it just got pushed to next year. So we're going to take that money out of this year's budget and put it into next year's. And it's just accounting, keeping track of things. So on the township side of things, again, that's same sort of deal. Love to partner with the townships. We have several townships, half of them that actually have road millages, which is great news. And then we also at the road department, we take 1.5 million out of our county primary road money, and we offer a matching program that the township will match some of that money, then we'll allow that money to go to township roads. So it's another way to bring in more revenue to the county and to get more roads fixed without actually increasing our revenue. So on the expenditure side, I was going to let Carrie run through a couple things. Do you want to take it from here, or you can click, or I can click? Okay.
So we're gonna hit the big one first, which is our road work. These numbers are our best projection until we actually meet with the townships in November. So we will then hash out all the details of eventually what projects will be selected. So we try to take our best guess based on historical, and then also looking at the federal aid carryover that Jason talked about earlier. So that's always a moving target, and it's affecting revenue and it's affecting the expenditure side. So we have some carryover, like he said, of the Red Arrow Union Pier and the Roosevelt Path. And then we're also trying to spend down some of our fund balance and get additional paving done. So we've included that, and that's why you'll see the increase in the contracted side of things. The road work includes all types of various fixed types. We've listed out some of them here, includes the maintenance of seal coat, fog seal, and then subcontracted services of HMA overlays, ultra thins, and the scratch and seal is a combination between our staff and subcontracted staff. For 2020
Carrie?
2021,
Carrie, excuse us, Commissioner Tucker.
Just a question, you skipped over the big page with your budget. We show a $3.7 million increase in contracted services. What are those contracted services?
so those are the major ones, like I mentioned, are the federal aid carryover. So we're carrying over 1.8 million from Red Arrow Highway and carrying over 1 million from Roosevelt Path. And then we're trying to do some additional paving on some primary roads as well.
I was talking about expenditures, not revenue.
I think it's the slide before
Right,
that.
so federal aid, we have to have the revenue and the expense side. So it affects both sides of the equation. So we'll get federal aid revenue, and then when the subcontractors are paid, we also have to record that on our books as our road. So you see it from both sides.
Okay, so you're going to show us a slide that justifies revenue versus expenses, and that 3.7 balances out on both of them.
The increase,
Yeah.
That'll be a fund balance in the end.
Yeah, we'll get to the fund balance, as our last slide.
No, I'm talking about a budget. You got expenditures that are going up 3.7. You're going to show us where the revenue follows that, right?
So some of that revenue is the federal aid revenue, and some is coming from our fund balance, which is why we'll show it on the fund balance page, and some of it will be spending down the additional revenues that are carried forward.
You're looking at it. So, hey, Carrie,
Yes?
so this is Brian. I think that if you can just jump ahead and address the elephant in the room, which is you're drawing down savings.
Correct. So our current fund balance is sitting at about almost 40%, which is more than you want to have in a special revenue fund. So we're trying to get that down to the 20% range, which is more of what like the GFOA recommends. And so we're trying to spend some of that down. So you'll see here, our projected 2020 is actually at 9.8 million, which is again about 40% of expenditures. So we will be bringing in about 27 million in revenue, and it's spending
Close to
30.
So what I've instructed our staff and what we've been trying to do is make sure that we spend that fund balance. I think that there was, prior to me being here, there was a culture of let's have as high a fund balance as we can have. But it's my philosophy, and I think it's certainly backed by good government and good accounting principles, that this money isn't ours to save. This is our money to spend so we can have a safe and efficient transportation system. So I don't want to carry any extra money if I don't have to. I want to be fiscally sound and have a good 20% fund balance, but a 40% fund balance isn't doing anybody any good. So I've been pushing staff to get money out the door, because in the road world, there isn't a rainy day fund. It's you spend the revenue that is generated that comes in. So in doing that, it looks like we're going to fall a little bit short of being able to spend all of our money yet again, and that goes back to staffing. We've been understaffed for quite some time, and it takes an amazing amount of time, money, effort, and expertise to get projects put together and out the door. I got to give Kevin and Carrie an incredible amount of credit to, in essence, the two of them with some help from a couple others to put in essence, $22 million of projects together, well, of a budget together and get that out the door. I'd put my team up against teams 2, 3, 4 times the size anywhere in the state.
Jason, just another question here. You're spending the savings account, I understand that. Have you worked through with Brian and the administration committee to have consensus around what it is being spent upon? You talk staffing, we need equipment, we need spend other projects. There's a lot of judgments that need to be made on what you're spending that $4 million on. And I just want to be clear that you have talked through with folks over here how you're doing it.
So
Is that
absolutely,
fair?
one of the main things that we need to do, obviously, we're not changing our complement in terms of positions, so I don't need any new positions. I just need to fill the ones I have. That's the big one. The other two big expenditures are on the capital side of things. I have pretty old equipment with our snow plows, our trucks, and I've done some pretty detailed analysis. And what we're trying to do is get our truck, I guess, replacement cycle to be about 14 years. So once a truck gets about 14, 15 years old, get rid of it so we can get a new one. Industry standards probably closer to 10, but I don't think we could meet that because that's pretty a significant increase. Then the other thing is I'm following exactly what you guys want me to follow, which is our asset management plan. That's what drives our decisions, is the asset management. We need to make sure that we have 75% of our roads fair or good by 2029, and we need to make sure that we have 90% of our bridges fair or good by 2027. So the board, to me, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing exactly what you guys asked us to do through asset management. And then obviously every year with our capital outlay, we're showing you where that's going. The one thing we should be doing, but we don't have the money, is we need wash bays, we need new garage facilities, new buildings, but it's kind of hard to invest money in those items when you still have poor roads and you still have 22-year-old plows that are out on the road. So I don't think we're doing anything other than what we've been directed to do, if that makes sense. And it's really all asset management, winter maintenance, and then when we come to this meeting every year to talk about our capital outlay.
Questions?
So here's the capital outlay request page. One of the things we do need to take care of are the our storage tanks that are underground. It just makes a lot of sense. They're old, they've passed their useful life, they need to be replaced, but I don't want to replace them in ground again. I'd rather do it above ground. It's easier to inspect, and just from the environmental standpoint, a better fix. The road equipment side of things, there are a few light duty trucks. Those light duty trucks that are being replaced have 200,000 plus miles on them, 250,000, I think, one of them. So well past their useful life. Yeah, our ATHI that we're replacing is a 1970s ATHI. That's that piece of equipment that as they remove high shoulders, it's basically a conveyor belt to help pull up those shoulders and pull up that gravel and dirt and by conveyor, fill more trucks. So it cuts the time probably, 1/10 the amount of time if you were doing it just with a loader. And then the single axle trucks, those are plow trucks. We're putting in for 4 with the chloride wet kits on them, so we can actually make our salt more effective. So that's our capital outlay request. Other than that, I think that's the majority of it. We didn't talk drain. My last quick, we have a few more minutes for questions, but I'll hit the drain side of things. I mentioned Holden and Towsley. Those were two emergency repairs. We were able to work with the Drain Commissioner. Drain Commissioner gave us the size of those culverts. Is needed. Road agency
Hold on a minute, can we understand it?
Well, we need to, is the room muted?
I just turned it back on.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Jason, when you were all breaking up there, yeah, can you redo that, please, resay that, please?
All right, start over on this slide.
Yes.
Okay, so this particular slide is this is our last slide on the drain assessment side of things. There's a backlog of projects. I know Christopher's been working on several drains, and we're trying to get those as the bills are coming in, trying to pay for them. And we budgeted a culvert budget for this year. I think it was over 400,000 for culverts. We're applying that to what we call drain assessments, just because they are county drains and they're culverts that needed to be replaced. Not to mention, we did get a few, I guess, bills that I wasn't expecting. So we're trying to increase that line item to make sure that we can pay those without having to get notes, and then we're stuck paying 10 years or longer for and paying the interest rates when we shouldn't be. So we have a good thing going with the Drain Commissioner. I believe some of these examples, like I said, on the emergency side, the Holden and Towsley, we were able to construct those with maintenance staff and design those with in-house road design. All we needed from the Drain Commissioner was, what size does that culvert need to be for his drain district? And once he gave us that size, we were able to order it and install it. So that's the most efficient way to do business, and that's pretty much where we are now. I think there's some legacy projects out there that are really expensive, but we're trying to get those taken care of. That's big, main items.
Is that the end of your presentation?
Yes.
And I'd like to ask in the room, are there any questions of Director Latham? And any from home, any questions?
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Curran.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Curran. Regarding fund balances, we have a county policy that addresses that as percent of budget, correct? Can you give me an idea what that is, what the percent is?
Okay, this is Doug. We do not have anything with regard to special revenue funds, which this would be considered a special revenue fund of the county government. We attempt to keep somewhere in the area of 60 to 90 days activity within their fund balance. They budget is 70.1 days that would remain at the end of the year. That their percentage is right down at 17, I think 17.1% of their expense. It would be nice to have it just a little bit higher, closer to 20, but that's just my 2 cents worth. But there's nothing specific within the policies that state that.
The percentages you're referring to are probably a little different than ours, because we have to back out that federal aid flow through. We don't include that in our daily expenditures, because that's a flow through. Just wanted to point that out. So those numbers might just be slightly
that money
different.
never comes to us. It's reimbursed, so it stays in Lansing.
So I take that out of the calculation.
Okay, I understand. It's approximate.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Again, just playing the role of timekeeper. We are on track we're just a couple of minutes away from the 10:30 start of the clerk's budget. If there's no other questions for the road department, I would recommend that we pivot to the next presentation.
Thank you very much. And if we have other questions, we will direct them to Administrator Bissett and get them to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. We really appreciate having the opportunity.
Madam Chair.
I'd like to say something. Jason, this don't have anything to do with the budget, but I just want to comment on how well Napier Avenue looks.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Looks good too. I'm really happy with it.
You ready? And the clerk is on.
She's coming, she's coming. Yep.
You turn it off.
Hang on, I gotta share.
Clerk, would you state your name and your assistant? Would you both state your names, please?
I'm Sharon Tyler, the Berrien County Clerk. I have Diane Mensinger, my Chief Deputy Clerk, with me. In the slide presentation, which you see before you, it is a combination of our 4 budgets. It includes the courts and vitals, the elections, campaign finance, and the concealed pistol license. So they're all as one. They're not separated out. We'll go to the next slide. I think that's you. That here shows us our purpose and our opportunities. The hardest issue that we have is retaining staff in the circuit court and in elections. Right now, we are currently down 3.5 employees, a part-time elections individual, and 2 court clerk 2s. Judge Hosbein just took one of our court clerk 2s. It seems like we train very well, and the judges like to keep on taking them, which I'm glad they advance in life, but it's a very strong hardship because court clerk 2s take 2 years to train. So we have a revolving door on the court clerks, especially in our office. And then the 3rd court position is our front desk, who also assists with PTOs and any variety within the office. So I'm going to get right down to the bulk of it. Why do we not meet the budget guidance? And it stems from 2 items. The $60,050 out of that 67,250 was 69,788. It's a little different. That has to do with our comparison in the budget. We were supposed to go from 2019 and compare with the 2021. Instead of like this year, we have a presidential election, the last time we had it. We are forecasting for the election. So bulk of that money is all due to the elections and the unknown forecast. And with a new Secretary of State and new rules and regulations with pandemic, it has created additional costs within the election process. The other item which is within that amount, and when we are doing the comparison, we have campaign finance. And it's a software, and we have a software program that in 2019, we did not get the bill instead of 2020, so it didn't include it, and then it would have been just the election costs. Is everybody with me and follow me? So that's where the discrepancy is. Otherwise, we would have been balanced and met the criteria of the budget. One thing we did do in this year's election, we took one of my vitals clerk, we took her whole salary and benefits. This is the first time, and it will be all taken out of the CPL funds. And this is the monies that the general fund cannot transfer. It has strict guidelines through the Michigan compiled laws. You can't touch it, but we're doing our best, and we have been seeing a very large uprise in CPLs at this time.
Are you allowed?
Yes,
do
to
that?
take salaries, yes.
Over there?
Right, and I would like to, because I know we've had some discrepancy on that, I would like to, for your office and mine, to balance with that as we move forward into 2021, so that we're on the same page. But since the pandemic, and we were really low staff during the pandemic due to transfers, because we had employees who, they were in the military, we had somebody who had to go on a major sick leave, who eventually left. We've been low in the salaries for the 2020 year. Do you have any questions? I'm trying to keep you guys moving on track.
This is just the elections and court vitals
Right
difference.
Yeah, that's all it is. Just because we didn't, when you had to compare, we didn't get the bill that year, and it went into the next year.
On this one.
Yeah, want to go on?
Campaign finance and CPL.
And there's right there is the concealed pistols license. What was the 3,000?
The campaign finance.
That was the campaign finance bill. So our rejections basically, the only item, I really have two items which were need, and we've been putting it on the back burner for years and years. Our chairs, you can't lift them or put them up and down. They just fall to the bottom. We have a major chair problem. We've even had employees buy their own chairs. And maintenance said they cannot fix the chairs. And the other item, which is probably not written in there, but I'm kind of just talking, is that because of a pandemic, and if we move forward, I feel that the clerk's office with court records and vital records, that we need to be able to do e-notarizing. Because otherwise, right now with the pandemic, we found out people needed documents notarized, we could not get to them. They started to go through banks, and then the banks quit doing it. We tried to find people. And if we go through a pandemic like we did, that is something which is critically needed in the county. It's very new. The state of Michigan only approved 4 vendors for that, and only one is in the state of Michigan. I'm not requesting it at this time. It's not that big of an expense to put in capital, but it is an expense, and it is very costly if you contract through them. And I think because of the courts and that, we would have that capability, and it would be good for the Register of Deeds and other needs. That is the only thing I have, really, through the whole budget. I want to be short and sweet, so you can move forward today. Any
Was
questions?
it because we were closed?
Well, the pandemic, people couldn't come in to the courts. They couldn't come in there. My staff was at risk, and we tried to go outside and notarize it. It created a big problem for candidate filing, really, with precinct delegates and stuff like that, because you had to notarize it, and we had a lot of write-ins, which created issues within the election process.
And our library, I noticed.
Yeah, but they were closed, so there was no, if the banks weren't doing it, we had none, and I think that created some of our election issues this year. I think it's something, and it also creates issues with court documents. It also with the filing of real estate property.
Yeah.
We had a major problem not having those tools. So as we look forward, this is something that it would be an asset to the entire county.
Continue. Commissioner Chickering.
Sharon, you
Yes.
mentioned openings and people moving on to other jobs? Are you finding candidates? I mean.
Well, I'll give you an example, because we thought we were very fortunate in having two court clerk, two positions. We hired two individuals from Whirlpool, great individuals, really excited. And when it came to the point of hiring them, they just declined due to the salaries, because they could make.
As opposed to being unemployed, they declined the job offer. Okay.
Two.
Two.
We thought we would have been only 1.5 if we sat there, so that was two.
No, that's.
And so we thought, and otherwise, and I think most of why we're not getting people is because of the unemployment with the bonus check.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Otherwise, I'm done.
Okay.
And I'll go back there and take your minutes.
Thank you so much. Any questions from home? Ms. Woods? Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll be in the back, so if you guys leave, let me know.
That's wonderful. Thank you both.
And may I have a cookie?
Oh, yes, have something. Have some cookies. Oh. Thank you. Where are we now? Is there a break on here?
There isn't, but you're ahead of schedule by 5 minutes, 4 minutes.
Do you want to take a 5-minute break?
Yes.
I would like to.
Okay.
Yeah, you good. You good job.
Oh, IS, information systems.
Annette, can you mute us? Before you do it. To the Zoom audience, we're going to take a 5-minute recess. We will be back, and I'll come on and make sure that you're aware.
Hi, Chris.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Chris, we can hear you. Are you gonna share your screen?
You haven't seen.
Yes, I'm going to share my screen and run.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. We're taking a little bit of break. I'll let you know when to start.
I wouldn't be surprised.
All right, just let me know.
Thank you.
This
All right, Sharon, are you ready?
Oh my God. It counts like everybody.
You ready? Okay. Chris, you're ready, right?
Yeah, I'm ready whenever you are.
Okay, great. Stop this, I'm gonna mute the room though.
Okay, well, I said I kind of, it kind of called.
So you just want me to go ahead and,
Hang on, you're finishing this conversation.
Our meeting is now back in order.
You guys should be asking those questions with the sheriff.
All right, we're good? All right, Chris, go ahead.
all right, can you see the presentation?
Yes, we can.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm just gonna go through this by each screen. Please stop me if you have any questions. As I'm sure you've heard from everybody else that's given presentations today, 2019 or 2020 was a very challenging year for IS. We had a lot that, come to pass because of the unexpected challenges of COVID. Just to run down some of the points here, obviously the purpose of IS is we provide technological services for all county departments, be it road department, sheriff's department, health department, all these services that things that we do. Going into 2021, I feel we have some opportunities in my department. The biggest thing I think that we have an opportunity to do is evaluate, our existing services, some things that we do. I started this in 2020, trying to consolidate some of the services in order to reduce costs. I think you'll see some of that as we're looking at the numbers in the upcoming sheets, my comparison between 2020 and 2019, or my 2021 budget. We'll see some savings in there. But I think there's even more opportunity going forward into 2021 to try and consolidate some things that we're doing in order to lower those costs down. The other opportunity is, we still have a lot of demand through the courts, health department, sheriff's department, all county departments really, to be able to service more things remotely. We went from a primarily a very limited remote service offering in 2020 to once COVID hit, that expanded very rapidly. And we were able, I think, to adapt to that very well. A lot of kudos to my, staff as we, rose to meet those challenges And I think, you know, going in, we have a pretty rock solid solution to offer people to be able to work remotely and get those resources, those county technology resources they need. Now, the risk and issues going into 2021 is basically just how do we continue to meet those rising demands, how those remote services are going to impact the long-term vision of the county. You know, are they going to continue even post-COVID? So, you know, we have to evaluate you know, whether these things that we're implementing now, how they're going to impact and how we're going to be able to meet those financial obligations. Also, we have a lot of challenges in terms of our, you know, our workforce in IS because our workload increased dramatically. I did a comparison of our support ticket counts, and they, in most cases, doubled or even more compared to where we were at the similar point last year. So looking at the budget, you can see, obviously, there's a significant amount in the red there. We had, versus our 2019 costs, we had increases in personnel, materials and supplies, purchases, service, and charges. And I'll get into that more as I go through the slides, but you know, it's very, very hard comparing 2019 numbers because every year our vendors increase support costs. We had a number of services that we've added since 2019, and that obviously impacted our overall budget. Similarly with capital outlay, we had a lot of increased capital projects, especially with Equivant and the courts. We had CAD project, we have the InformaCast speaker project, which underway. So there were a lot of things that technology-wise that we've responded to meet, and I'll kind of go over those numbers again in some subsequent slides. As far as our revenue sources of funds, they've maintained fairly consistent. We had a slight, you know, we project a slight decrease next year. You know, just not sure how COVID is going to impact that. But you know, overall, I think our numbers are good. If you look at also the column with the changes versus 2020, you'll notice some decreases there. So I think that's a result of some of the consolidation that we're, you know, doing in the department, trying to consolidate services, because before we had a lot of billing that was kind of scattered throughout the year, and we've tried to put that under one umbrella where we're renewing these services at one particular time, and that's helped reduce some cost. Obviously, there's not a lot of change. Most of our finance comes out of the general fund, so a lot of those numbers are the same. In terms of the material and supplies, where we've had an increase in there, and purchase services and charges, same numbers. So let's kind of dig into that. My budget guidance overall is 107,000 that we're over. And I want to try to explain that and why. So if we take a look at the main one that was over was the purchased services and charges. And as I mentioned, the model used to create the 2021 budget number doesn't really accommodate for growth or changes to the existing environment or the annual increase that vendor charges to software maintenance and support. So if we take using 2019 numbers and we look at software maintenance, where it was like roughly 80% of my budget, the total was over almost $600,000, $572,000. If we take that 4% increase and add it from 2019 to 2020 to 2021, that in and of itself is almost $47,000 in increase, just increasing that 4% per year. As I mentioned, this doesn't include any software services, which were purchased since 2019. Cost increases or to other line items such as contractual services, computer hardware, maintenance, telecom costs. We increased Comcast this year, so we had a significant cost in you know, being able to meet those remote services. We had to increase our internet service We also had to increase bandwidth in between a couple of our buildings. And also keep in mind that this number doesn't include the things that we added because of COVID: Zoom licenses, remote access licenses, video conferencing hardware. And on top of that, we still have the mainframe, which our vendors are significantly increasing cost in order to keep that system up and running. Decision One, who provides the hardware support on the mainframe, their increase in maintenance went from $16,000 to $52,000. Fortunately, I was able to negotiate for them to cover the mainframe for both 2020 and next year, 2021, for that price, but it was still a significant increase to my budget that I had to cover going forward.
Hey, Chris?
Yeah.
We'll check in here. To follow up on a number of these items here, and Doug mentioned that the munis cost goes up 5% every year.
Mm-hmm.
When you're looking at all of these different things, and I know change is difficult, I'm not saying that, but you know, 4, 5, 6, 10% increases in service is not a sustainable strategy.
No, absolutely.
So what are you all doing to kind of try to keep a lid on that stuff? Is there competition available?
Yes, in cases going forward, that's something we're going to be looking at, is alternate sources where we see increases that aren't reasonable. Certainly there, you know, especially when our AT&T contract comes up, we'll be looking at, you know, trying to look at alternate options. The other thing that I was looking at, again, was with service consolidation, trying to reduce services in one area and consolidate them in other areas, because a lot of times vendors will offer discounts. So that's something that we're looking at in terms of our licensing fees, you know, in things, you know, that we can manage that way. It's very hard, like with something like a Munis or BSNA, once that service is set up and that software is integrated and running with everything, to switch, obviously would be a very huge undertaking, but it's something that I'm very mindful of.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
So let's kind of feed off that and look at that. So as we look at that $107,000 number, and again, this is the one line item for software maintenance. If you look at, I've broken it all down into the various software that we support, what we paid in 2019, and what my projection is in 2021, and then the difference between the 2 years. So if you keep that $107,000 in mind and look at that total increase between 2019 and 2021, that's $68,000, which was the majority of that $107,000. If we look at contractual services, if we look at hardware maintenance, we're going to see similar patterns. So some big numbers to kind of look at, things that pertain to the mainframe, like BI Moyle, was almost $4,000. IBM mainframe, 4% increase for 2021. So that's an increase almost $5,000. Software AG is another mainframe thing that they had a significant increase of almost $8,000 between 2019 and 2021. You see some of the blank areas where there was no change. Some things do remain consistent from year to year. You can also see like Informacast, 2021 is the first year that we'll be providing maintenance and support on that. So that's $11,000 there for our annual use. And just so you know, Informacast is the countywide alert system that's being implemented right now. We also had the Sonic Wall SMA, which is our remote access solution that we implemented this year, and we'll have some licensing renewal going forward for 2021. Any questions concerning this screen? All right, I'll keep going. The other area that we had another difference in was the materials and supply line. We had a difference of just over $4,100. So this particular supply line is what we use to fund miscellaneous mainframe supplies and expenses such as paper, ribbon, etc. And we also use this funding to accommodate any non-project related wiring costs that the county has. So if somebody wants to move a PC from one location to the other, or if we have to have some added wireless access points, which we did a lot of this year, this is where that money comes from. You can, if you look, I have the red highlighted in 2019, the cost, we didn't have a lot of outlay, but this year, you know, because of the stuff we did with COVID, we have already this year had $9,500. Back in 2018, we had almost 10. So this is kind of one of those things that we try to fund for, but it's very hard to predict. We used to in 2019 and 18 fund 15,000 a year. We did reduce that in 2020 to 13.5. I was stuck with that number again in 2021. I'd be hesitant. We could try to reduce that even lower, you know, to more $11,000 in going forward. So that is certainly something, you know, I could look at. For our capital projects going into 2021, I've highlighted a couple sections. You'll see the darker orange color is the new stuff that that we're picking up this year. But just to kind of go over the top, we have line items that we budget for every year in my 4 budgets that I account for. We account for hardware and software upgrades or additional purchases that may come up during the year. So we budget individual lines for each of those. So you see the 6,000, the 32.5, so on and so forth. We have the E911 project for Cisco Emergency Responder that's carrying over. We also have, you're all familiar with the SAN project, the server storage that we met earlier in the year and talked about, and that's in this line. It's being, we hope to have that done this year, but given the way that supplies of technology are, we're not exactly sure if we're going to get that entirely completed in 2020. So that's why I have that included here. And then we also have a line that we use to upgrade network switches every year. And that's just kind of a phased replacement that we do to try to keep our technology current. Now, new for 2021, you'll see a big emphasis on increasing infrastructure. All this video, the Zoom that we're doing, all the remote connections coming in from home have really hammered the internal network connections. We already have a lot of stuff in place that we're working on improving in our main data center, but we've seen a lot of significant increases in our outlying areas, such as the admin center. You know, we're doing Zoom meetings on a weekly basis there. So I have line items like to upgrade the admin wireless bridge, which is a connection between the admin building and the courthouse, a county internet upgrade, and that is to move us to fiber, because even though we increased our Comcast, we're hitting the limit of where cable can get us. We're not only are we downloading more, but we're uploading a lot more, and we're hitting that peak of what the cable can do for us. So I really need to move us to fiber so that we can get more upstream bandwidth for Zoom meetings, for the courts, and to be able to accommodate, you know, everybody wants a webcam sitting on their desk, you know, to be able to do these kind of meetings. So we have to be able to accommodate that. And that kind of feeds into the refresh of our switches on the 3rd and 4th floor. We added roughly, I think, 20 to 30 wireless access points up on those 2 floors to accommodate the courts and all the remote Zoom meetings that we're doing. And it created some bandwidth issues. So we need to upgrade those 100 meg switches to gigabit switches to get them some more bandwidth. The Sheriff New Buffalo substation project, that has to do with them moving to a new facility that the town, they're building in conjunction with the township. So there are going to be some costs associated with that. And then the last thing you have down there is an upgrade of our backup tape library with all the servers and things that we've added in relation to JWorks, the Core Equivant, CAD, and honestly, we're really getting hammered with a lot of video. We have all the officers wear body cams now. So there's a lot of video that's being added into our network that's being viewed by, the prosecutor's office, sheriff's department, and that stuff has to, ends up somewhere. So we need to upgrade our archival tape library to be able to store that more permanently and move it out to Vault. And then lastly is our network printer project, and that's just a fund that we use to upgrade network printers, similar to what we do with the switches. Anybody have any questions?
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, this is Commissioner Curran. First, I just have one comment to make, that when we approved the body cameras, we knew there were going to be additional expenses going forward on that. So I appreciate your insights into that. Any of the projects that you have listed there for either the 911 center or emergency management, are those grant reimbursable or grant eligible?
I don't think anything that I have in here that's related directly to the 911 project. Caitlin has her own funding that she's using, like for the CAD upgrade. But that is definitely something that I'm thinking about. There is, there has to be money available out there in grants that, especially given COVID, that we should be able to apply for. And frankly, it's just been a matter of finding the time to try and do that research. We've been, like I said, we've been extremely busy this last year trying to meet the changing demands of COVID, especially, with the courts and their projects and things that we're looking at trying to help accommodate them with remote hearings and jury selection. It seems like it changes on an almost daily or weekly basis. So yes, there should be some funding available that I need to find some time and research.
Okay, thank you for that answer. And I used the word grant, but you're right. Right now, the state that we're in, there may be CARES Act money available to us for some of these, especially the Zoom. That has forced us all to go to Zoom that we would not have normally done. So I appreciate your efforts in looking for CARES Act money, grant money, whatever, to reimburse or to fund some of these projects. Thanks for your hard work, Chris.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question, maybe Yarborough.
Yes.
If in my department I needed new printers, can that come out of my budget? Or can it come from a grant I get and it goes to IS, or does everything go through IS money?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I know you can use it in stages, but is there ever, like the health department, they get all kinds of grants. Could they get a grant for some IS equipment and then go to you and come back into them?
Yes, so a lot of times if a department has a special project, which they have grant money assigned for, then they'll have IS advise on that, and then the funding comes out of their budget using that grant. So I know that there have been a number of things that the health department has taken on this year that have come out. There have been a number of websites that they put up. I know there was a dashboard they put up, and some other services that they've added. Most recently, they added a SARA alert system for contact tracing. So that's something we're working on them with. But a lot of times those grant related projects are headed by the department that's acquiring grant. And then we're brought in as a consultant and advisor on how to implement that with our network, with our technology to make sure it meets the requirements of our security, data privacy and other issues.
Thank you. Any other questions in this room?
Yes, thank you, Madam
Commissioner
Chair.
Chickering?
Chris, this is Bill Chickering. It's not a question, it's really a thank you, because as someone who is severely technologically challenged, you and your people have done a marvelous job, absolutely marvelous, at keeping somebody like me who doesn't know how to use this equipment up to speed on it. And that's not just Zoom, that's correcting things that I screw up, etc. And I just, big kudos to you and your team for all you're doing. Great people to work with.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. I'm very, very humble. So, I have to give that credit to my staff. They've been very fortunate and very blessed to have a lot of great people to work in IS.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
we're just a couple of minutes from starting the next budget. I did want to point out one more thing on Chris, not to make him blush, but I've been here a couple of months, and what I've seen from Chris's team is what I would call the power of yes. They have been hit with just about every challenge that you can imagine, from trying to run courts remotely to pushing jury pools down to South County, making it work in St. Joe, and on and on. Over the last weekend, Chris really burned the midnight oil to ensure that the jail camera systems were working functionally. I've been really impressed with his team, and he's just managing 1,000 projects while also building a budget, while also managing some really advanced equipment and material. So really impressed. Chris, well done.
Thank you so much.
Very humble, very humble. Thank you very much.
And thank you so much for the budget and for the report and answering our questions. And I'm in the same lane as Commissioner Chickering. I touch things and everything goes out. And then you all touch it and it comes back, so that's good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have a question.
Yes.
What does Zoom cost us now?
Oh, goodness. We have a license through Zoom. Chris, do you know the monthly cost on that?
So we purchased, initially we bought 10 licenses when this first started, and that has significantly expanded. The base cost of licenses was, I think, $199 a year per license. I believe our annual renewal is going to be somewhere around $3,200 for 2021. But you also have to increase some of the outlying costs of, bandwidth that we've added, overhead in terms of added polycoms that we didn't have to have before. You have one there in the BOC room. So, they're not only in that terms of just the Zoom licensing, webcams, we have a number of laptops that have been added so people can participate in Zoom meetings. There's a lot of other impact, on our network.
Well,
But we need it.
Yep. All right, Madam Chair, if there's nothing else for Chris, we can move to the next topic.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Bye now.
Next on our agenda.
Amber is here. And, oh, there we go, you got it there. Okay, I'm working, I'm trying to get it loaded on my end, but she's on and ready to go, I believe.
Madam Chair.
Motor pool?
No, we've actually got Amber.
Oh, she's oh, good.
She is here on Zoom, yep.
Felony probation. Would you introduce yourself, please?
My name is Amber Glendenning. I'm the supervisor from Felony Probation. We're actually also Michigan Department of Corrections.
Please go ahead.
Okay, it's nice to see all of you. I'm a little disappointed that I don't get to come and see you in person this year. It's always, I always enjoy coming and letting you guys know how we're doing and what we're kind of up to, since we're one of the lesser known entities, I think. Just as a recap, I feel bad because I always do this every year, but my staff is technically employed by the state. We're a state-run office. We're the Michigan Department of Corrections. Because of legislative requirements, we are nice enough. The county is required to house us. So we have our offices We have one office in the courthouse in St. Joe. And then we have another office, thank you, Annette. We have another office in the Niles South County building. In the St. Joe office, we continue to have 15 agents and 3 clerical staff. And then myself and Supervisor Marvin Bruin. In our Niles office, we have 4 agents, 1 clerical, and Marvin goes and splits his time actually between Niles and St. Joe. Just again, as a quick little bit of background for us, I ran the numbers, and obviously we have been very impacted by the pandemic as well. We saw a lot less. One of the bigger functions that we take care of is writing pre-sentence investigation reports, which are the reports that the judges are required to receive before they can sentence anyone that is pled guilty to a felony offense. That is one of the main tasks we do. In a given year, we complete many more than we will this year. I ran the numbers through August of last year. At this point, we had completed 705 PSIs. This year, we're down to 537 PSIs, which is a net of less than 168 PSIs. So that's quite a bit. Obviously, a lot of that is due to the courts being closed for the most part in the end of March, April, and May. In April, May, and June, we actually did complete several PSIs still. Those were for mostly people that were in jail, so we could get them moved out of the jail. In July, our numbers did start to pick up, but we're still below our July average. I'm pleased to say that in August, last month, we completed 70 PSIs, which was only 2 less than in 2019. So we're picking speed back up. We're doing well. My staff, I'm very proud of them. We've come up with a lot of ways. I don't know if you're aware also, the state, we are not allowed to be in our office full time at this point. We're not allowed to go in at all. As a matter of fact, whenever we need to go in the office, I actually have to get permission from our chain of command for us to go in there at all. Even though the courthouse is open, we are not allowed to go in there per state requirements at this point. As a matter of fact, I have a clerical, we got permission for her to go in to take care of some restitution issues that we didn't want victims to be kept from getting their money for restitution. So we actually got permission for her to go in and get some things done on our end, so the clerk's office can proceed on their end and we can get those victims their money. So like I said, we've come up with a lot of really different ways to make sure we're not slowing any of the other departments in the courthouse down, and to make sure that we're still holding up our end of the deal, so to speak, and making sure we're doing a great job. The agents are taking reports from the individuals that we're supervising over electronic means. We use like Zoom or Duo or FaceTime. We use the video equipment that Chris Swihart and his crew were nice enough to get us hooked up with, so we can interview people in the jail without having to go in the jail. And we're still going out to offenders' houses and doing home calls and making sure everybody's where they're supposed to be. Like I said, we have never stopped. We've been on the move the whole time, making sure no one gets lost in the shuffle, making sure we don't have anyone that's had a gap in services or anything like that. So I'm really proud of my crew and the work that they've done. And like I said, I think we've done a really good job of making sure we're not slowing anybody else down. So without further ado, my budget is very straightforward. I think it's probably, if not the easiest, one of the easiest you'll come across during your days of doing this. We require very minimal. As I said, our salaries and benefits are all paid through the state, so none of that has any tie to the county whatsoever. Basically, my budget just ties into what we need for day-to-day operations. So you can see the first line item is office supplies. I left that the exact same as what our budget was for last year, and also for our small office equipment, like our dictation equipment, things along those lines that the agents use to complete their reports. The next few lines, all you can see remain the same. The communications, the telephone and cell phone, we don't have any cell phones through the county, but our office phones are what normally cost us $900. Since we're not in the office, our budget is, we are requiring significantly less. You can see It'll be $400 less than I'm asking for, because I do anticipate that we will probably not have our office fully staffed, at least for the next few months. We do have state issued iPhones that, again, the state pays for. All of my agents have those. So they've actually gone to communicating with all of their individuals on their caseload strictly with our iPhones, which has resulted in the reduced amount needed for our phone bill from the county. So there's one upside to us working remotely during this pandemic. If you, again, the next line remain the same, the copier charges. This is also a byproduct of us working remotely. Usually when we complete those several hundred PSIs throughout the year, each one of those reports can be anywhere up to 20 pages long. And we make all of the copies for the defendant, for the attorneys, for the prosecutor, for the judges. And that is where we get that healthy copier charges bill from. Since we've been working remotely, we've actually managed to figure out ways. We're now sending the PSI reports all electronically. We have them encrypted, so that the security of them isn't compromised. But we've actually been sending them that way, and I think it's actually worked out pretty well. I haven't heard any judges complain, so I think we're in good shape. And then the rest of the lines all remain the same. The biggest one is that rent lease, the copier equipment. And again, that's a contract that Chris gives me that number and I just plug it in there, and that is what it is. Another upside, I suppose, from us working remotely is that our copier equipment is pretty old. And I guess we've bought it some life by not being in there full time the last few months, and maybe we can keep it chugging along for a while yet. I think that is all I really have as it pertains to the budget. You can see, so my 2021 request is $625 less than it was for 2020. And again, that's mostly due to those two line items. Well, it's entirely due to those two line items that have to do with us not physically being present in the office the last 6 months. I did look up the numbers because I'm not sure if you guys are interested, but I always like giving them to you. As of today's date in 2019, we had 726 individuals we were supervising in the North County that were on probation, and there were 230 in Niles. As of today, we have 567 individuals in St. Joseph and 175 in Niles. So it's about 200 less people in the county that are currently on felony probation. There are a couple reasons for it. Obviously, part of it is that we didn't do as many PSIs. The court slowed down and wasn't able to take as many pleas. And I suspect that as the year goes on, we're going to start picking up those numbers again as the court picks up sentencing people. But I think a lot of it too is that my staff has really made a concerted effort that, you know, when we get people that are on probation that have paid off their money and they've done all of their treatment and the things that we've really asked them to do, we're trying to go to the judges more and get them discharged from probation and not have them on supervision and let them kind of get on with their lives if they've shown that it isn't necessary for them to be on supervision and they can be successful on their own. So I like that we are trending in that direction as well. Do any of you have any questions for me?
Here in this room? Any at home?
I'm sorry?
I'm just asking if there are any on Zoom that have any questions. Thank you very much.
I'm good. Thank you.
You're
Yes,
welcome.
Commissioner Harrison?
No, I'm in, I thought Amber covered it very well.
Good.
Yeah, great work, Amber.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Madam Chair, are you ready to move to the next one?
Yes.
Okay.
God's on.
Just a second.
Folks, I'm going to mute us just for a second while we set up.
Then will you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are and what you do.
I'm Todd Rady, the fleet manager for the county.
Thank you.
And Todd, the speaker's right there, if you can speak
Nice and loud.
fairly loud. Okay, thanks.
This is my presentation for the budget. Our mission statement is to provide the departments with safe and reliable transportation and be responsive to all the departments' different vehicle needs. Some opportunities we have is to try to minimize our outsourcing services. Some of these special services are getting harder and harder and more expensive to, like for installations, special installations. I'd like to see us try to move to handle that more in-house in the future. And some of our risks are the new vehicle supply chain has been pretty much disrupted. It's been hard to find new vehicles. Even the ones I've ordered have been long delays. And our auto parts costs have continued to rise in the last year and a half, and my fuel costs is going to be unknown. So here's the budget I've prepared for this year. As you can see, it's in the red compared to 2019 actual. Some of the reason for that is, as I'll show you on the next slide, is motor oil costs have extremely gone up. They rise at least $200 per 55 gallon drum over the year, and we use a lot of oil. Tires and brakes, all that's just gone way up.
Todd, I'm sorry, I need to speak up a little bit more, please.
Okay.
I have trouble hearing you at home.
So as you can see, the synthetic oils that these new cars use, I'm sure you've had oil changes done. It's getting rather expensive to get one done. And my used oil used to be a revenue, now it's an expense. Nobody wants it. We have to pay to get rid of it. And like I said, fuel costs, I have no idea what's going to happen there. And some of the safety gear, welding helmets, gloves and stuff, we used to share. Now we can't hardly do that anymore. And cleaning supplies. And the purchases and the services, this is just a list of some of them. Have our certifications, continued training for the new vehicle technology, our software that we use to diagnose the vehicles. And right there you see the front brake job used to be 169, now it's 236. And mind you, we do probably on the squad cars every 6 months they're getting brakes put on. And the same way with tires. And last year we didn't have much body shop repair, but it was really light winter, so I'm not sure what's going to bring us there also. The capital requests, with the EPA's new, in 2018 they started a new air conditioning refrigerant requirements. So that requires new equipment to install it and retrieve it and recycle it. We need a radio that's broke. It's a 20-year-old radio. It worked good, but now it's no longer more repairable. And then it's just our normal hand tools replacement for the year.
Excuse me, one radio costs $3,500?
That's correct, and that's a cheap one.
Huh?
And that's a cheap one, yes, ma'am.
Oh my goodness. Oh, but you had it for 20 years, so I guess
20 years,
maybe
we
it's paid off.
See, how much is that a year?
So you don't get it, you don't have them or don't replace them, you just wait till they wear out, till they.
Typically, yes. We were going to replace it last year, but that got knocked out of the budget for last year.
Thank you. Continue.
Any questions?
Oh.
Todd, you started by saying one of your objectives was to try to consolidate, maybe bring some more work in that your guys could do, et cetera. What kinds of stuff are you thinking about there?
Especially squad cars for like the cage installations, push bumpers, possibly some of the wiring.
And that stuff, when we buy it OEM, we pay them to do that, but you and the sheriff think you could do it?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
Plus it would be a lot more efficient We'll know how it's installed and we'll be able to repair it rather than hustling cars back and forth, and down vehicles, things like that.
Great, good idea.
Hey Todd, you've also been helping out with the dial-a-ride.
Bearing bus?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Bearing bus. Would you be willing to just describe some of the things that your people have been doing?
Yeah, we've been taking on some of the light-duty bearing bus, not the big buses, we don't have equipment or knowledge for that, but they're normal town and country vans and stuff. We've been doing suspension work and oil changes and brakes and stuff on them to help them out. Since
How about things like the senior center vehicles, do they take care of their own, or is that something that could be?
I think that's a big bus, isn't it?
Oh, they have a
No,
lot
it's a
of
van.
van vehicles that they, you know, all their people, you know.
Right now, they're responsible for their own,
Yeah.
and that's part of what the funding goes for.
But no, we try to help out all around the county if we can, if we have the services available.
That is good. How many employees do you have?
Just two mechanics and myself.
Two. Everything I've been saying today rhymes. I'm gonna rap, I was gonna be one of those. So three, and you have time, you see where you can do extra things. when you
Yeah, a
have
lot of the
wiring.
installations can be done like kind of in off-peak hours. It's not something that has to be done immediately.
And you're still not doing much for the road department? I mean, the big trucks and stuff you can't do, I know, but.
We do a couple, yes, from there. Yeah, some of the light-duty trucks, yes.
Great.
And you can't work on, can you work on boats?
We do work on boats too.
We got these motors, we got these motors that say they're not gonna work.
Well, that kind of
Well,
work.
you know about it.
Would not be able to do, but we do help them out as far as welding things that have gotten broken and stuff.
Okay.
Great.
How long have you been here?
3.5 years?
That's something, isn't it? It's going fast.
Yes, it is.
How many years?
3.5.
Yeah, we hired him. I think from somewhere else, and
Whirlpool.
then we'll took you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Congrats, you're officially ahead of time. If the group is ready, we have one final presentation for the day, that's equalization. And in all seriousness, I thought I was gonna have to kick people out of here at 12:30, so I'm smiling ear to ear.
So you'll have them come. Thank you very much. Yes, please have them come.
Nice work, Todd, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is working well. I brought a bag of lunch and stuff. Good, thank you so much. Thank you, Annette, for all of
Really
this.
want to get a hold of me today, it's like,
We can put that there. I guess we're not worried about it, coming in here, but that's fine. I'll move it out for tomorrow.
Okay.
Warren has been unmuted. Warren, are you ready to go? Oh, is it on? Yeah, Warren, you ready to go?
Can you hear me all
Oh,
right?
you left out the ladies in the building downstairs?
Yeah, so Warren is here via Zoom.
Okay. Good afternoon. Would you introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Yes, good afternoon. Is my audio coming through okay?
Yes,
Yes,
I can
it is.
hear you.
Okay, great. Looks like my video cut out. So I don't think you can see me, but I was there a minute ago. But I'm prepared. Sorry?
Warren, we cannot see you, we can hear you. Please go ahead and start your presentation.
All right. So I'm Warren Parrish. I am the Equalization Director, and I have my presentation here. I'm going to see if I can share my screen.
All right, and Warren, just so you know, and everybody there at home, I'm muting the room so that we can hear you really well.
Okay, okay. And is the presentation coming through okay?
Yes, it is. We can see it.
Perfect. All right. So, last one of the day, but I think it'll be an easy one. So here we go. Just a little bit about our purpose. First of all, there are two main things that we deal with every year for equalization with at least the Board of Commissioners, and that is the process of county equalization itself, and then apportionment, which we'll be dealing with next month. We of course have other functions that we do, but those are the two worth highlighting. Something that's pretty exciting for 2021 is we're kind of a new department now. You know, I started as director this year, and Katie Bauer in our office has replaced me as the deputy director. And 3 of our 5 appraisers are still pretty new. In fact, one of them actually just started today. So this is, I think, an exciting opportunity to look at what we've done right, keep doing it, and ask ourselves, how can we do better? And so that's the idea going forward into 2021. As far as risks and issues, this is by no means a new concern, for lack of a better word, but I want to at least mention it, not to beat a dead horse. Retention has been problematic. We found that we have to hire folks in at an entry level. We're not able to really attract the more experienced professionals. And then once they have a few years with us, we find that we lose them because we're not really competing. And when it comes to the experienced level, we're not really competing there. So that's going to be my concern down the road. Let's look at the numbers a little bit. I want to talk briefly about the personnel costs because you can see those have jumped up. But that's not at all surprising because in 2019, you know, we had significant departures from the department. The director resigned, as you know, and at the time we had 4 appraisers. We lost 2 last year, advanced level appraisers. So not surprisingly, our change from 19 is up, though it is down from 18. And then our other 2 categories that really stand out, we've got some extra money compared to 19. For materials and supplies, I was able to shave off a little bit for our small tools and equipment. And then for purchase services and charges, there's actually a lot left over there. Those numbers that you're seeing, for the most part, represent the contract with Tony Mayer, my predecessor. So ignoring that for a moment, for the most part, we're pretty level. Our numbers from 19 aren't changing all that much. So, but at the end of the day, you can see the big picture. It's definitely met the budget guidance, and we're looking in pretty good shape. Jumping down to the bottom, the sources of funds. This is revenue that we get from participating townships and cities. Or we assist them in mailing personal property statements. It's something that needs done every year. And this is projected to cover our costs. It's about half what it was in prior years. This is largely due to legislative changes, which have reduced the number of statements that are required to go out depending on circumstances. So this is a variable number. It's really difficult to predict, but that's what we're looking at. Slightly less revenue, but again, it's just there to cover our costs. Moving on here, I don't exactly have an exception request because I have met the budget guidance, but this is intended to be more just an explanation. But it's what I already talked about, how in 2019, you know, we had to replace a lot of people. So now in 2021, we'll actually have a full complement for the first time since 2018, but a lot of our people are newer, so it's actually a 13% reduction from the 2018 actual. And again, I'm just talking about personnel costs here. And then as far as the bottom section there, the sources of funds, this is that same explanation I just gave about the personal property statements and the legislative changes that have reduced the number of them that are required. So I'm expecting less revenue from that. But at the end of the day, I'm really not asking for anything more than we have in past years. And that's really all I got, unless there's anything you'd like me to address.
Are there any questions, Commissioner Chicory?
Warren, I know that you're required by law to provide the equalization reports and all that kind of support and everything for all the townships and municipalities. And that's why there's no other revenue on your line. But I think in the past, at times, there have been special projects in certain areas, and the reassessment of City of Benton Harbor comes to my mind, where your organization you were involved in helping them do more than what we are obligated to do. Is that true? Have we done that in the past?
I want to say that there have been instances where we did provide services and have revenue, but I can't say off the top of my head what specifically, because I actually don't think we have done that for a number of years. Specifically with the Benton Harbor reappraisal, I don't believe we actually provided services to further the reappraisal efforts. We instead had to oversee the reappraisal as part of our normal equalization role. So there was no revenue to us from that process.
Okay, thank you for that.
Say that last part again. There was no revenue.
To equalization as part of the Benton Harbor reappraisal. That was done, at least the cost of it and the contracting that went on was done by the city. But for equalization's point of view, we're still obligated to study the city, just like every other township and city. And so we just had to oversee the reappraisal process rather than doing our normal study process. So that wasn't a revenue item to us. That was basically routine business, but just different from normal routine business.
Thank you for that.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So we are slightly ahead of schedule. You've got our resident expert on right now. I was hoping we could spend just a couple of minutes having him talk with the group about the revenue assumptions that he's been making on behalf of the county, and just that process, that balancing act of being very, very cautious and conservative while also understanding how much new construction is actually occurring. Warren,
yeah,
I've seen some correspondence from you on your revenue projections. Can you take a couple of minutes and just walk this group through how you arrive at the revenue projections?
Certainly. Bear in mind, I originally came up with those numbers in, I believe, June. And at the time, my crystal ball, I found out after the fact, had some low batteries. But I do feel pretty good about it as far as accurately as this sort of thing can be predicted. The process I used, it was actually really intricate because there are several variables that contribute to taxable value changes. And so what I did was I looked at the median number of uncappings that occurred over the last X number of years. And then I looked at the median difference in taxable value to SEV, and then used a regression analysis to trend out if we follow a similar behavior that we have in past years. If I look back at, say, 3 years or 5 years or however many years, what is that going to forecast as far as the number of uncappings and then how much value we can expect to see from those uncappings. And I did that categorically for each type of property, whether it be commercial, residential, agricultural. And then I also had to forecast the inflation rate multiplier, which is driven by the changes in the consumer price index. So at the time, we didn't have all of the pieces to the puzzle because that's done on an annual basis. And so we only had like the first 3/4, 2/3 of the year. It's not a calendar year available. So there's a lot of assumptions that get made. But as Brian indicated, we try to be reasonably conservative in those assumptions and realistic in those assumptions. There was, I had a thought just now. The millage rates themselves even have the potential of being reduced, which of course, our taxable value may go up, but the millage rates that we're allowed to levy against that taxable value could get rolled back as part of the requirements of the Michigan Constitution. So in the 2021 budget projections, I actually built in a slight millage rollback as part of our scenario to say, well, if in fact our millages do get reduced, what would that potentially look like? So it's honestly a coin flip. There's no predicting that. There's just no way to say if that's going to happen or not. But there is some allowance built into our budget projections, anticipating that it's certainly possible, especially since I'm anticipating a lower rate of inflation for 2021. So hopefully I didn't get too technical there, but it's a process, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. I just do the best I can with the information I have, and it's a tough thing to predict. But
Hey Warren, this is Brian Doucette.
Sure.
Just in a nutshell, is the number going up or down?
The number is going up. Let me pull up here.
Okay.
That's wonderful.
Okay, just get to the bottom line,
Yes. I have a question. I just wonder if I could see you for a minute, if I can have 2 more equalization books. Do you have any? This is.
I believe I do, yeah. I can bring them upstairs if you like.
If you bring it, I'd appreciate it, because I don't quite know what I did with the ones I was supposed to give away.
Okay, yeah, I can do that.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I would ask just to the group, are there any questions for equalization? So we are 10 minutes to 12. I can't believe it, but we are slightly ahead of schedule. If, as you look to tomorrow, it's going to be a very similar day. Anything that you need to make yourselves comfortable, either let me or Annette know. If there's anything that you'd like done differently, please let us know. Our job is to make this as painless as possible. I know the biggest issue right now is probably pretty cold in here. I'll see if I can get another heater just to make it a little more comfy.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Curran?
It's warmer in my house.
What?
Commissioner
Madam
Curran?
Chair, I do have a final question.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Brian, we're all hearing the gloom and doom for the 21 and 22 budgets because of the COVID. Now, I noticed you asked department heads to compare or use the 2019 budget as a base. Are you anticipating revenues being comparable to 2019? And again, I appreciate the conservative approach. I think that's a good way to do it. But what are your assumptions as far as the revenues and your proposed 2021 budget? I think I've seen it, but I guess I want to ask the question out loud. Your 2021 proposed budget, you were slightly over the budget projection?
Yeah, so what we as staff have been trying to do is trying to push out information to all departments saying, hey, if you haven't been paying attention, there's a global pandemic and we have no idea what this will do long-term to overall Berrien County. We chose to try and bring this thing in essentially at a flat level, knowing that some departments would have needs that could not line up with 2019. As we look at your revenues, your taxable revenues are going to go up for the upcoming fiscal year. We still have concerns about state shared revenue and other revenues, but Jim, to be honest with you, I pulled up articles from Cass County and an article from Ottawa County. I've reached out to a variety of county administrators across the west side of the state, and I can't get the same answer. Ottawa County last week in the Holland Sentinel noted a significant increase in overall spending for the upcoming fiscal year. That same week, Cass County noted a significant decrease in overall spending for the upcoming fiscal year. So to answer your question, we are going to have slightly more revenue as we look at 21 as compared to 20. But we are also being extremely cautious, not knowing the potential for another round of stimulus, not knowing what COVID is going to look like as we get into the winter. That is a very roundabout answer, but my point is our total spending will go up slightly. To say at this moment what that number will be, I don't know yet. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yeah, I think that's pretty close, because I know there are a lot of unknowns. Having heard you say that, then let me ask you one final question. What percent reduction from other revenue, state, federal, that's all baked into our budget, what percent would we have to lose before we would talk about layoffs?
Yeah, so I'm going to address the elephant in the room, which is this county has done an extremely good job of building your fund balance. But you don't have to stay at approximately 40%. As we look at the upcoming fiscal year, we are not seeing a significant decrease in your taxable revenues. You're actually seeing an increase. As we look at planned spending, we are trying to bring it in flat. Even with that said, you have close to 40% sitting in available cash in the form of fund balance. Healthy levels of fund balance range from anywhere from 25% up to 40%. I can tell you that in South Haven, we always shot for 25% as a reasonable and healthy number as a percentage of overall fund balance. So to jump back to your question, are we giving any thought to layoffs? At this time, no. If, as we refine this budget document and pull out some of the planned spending as it relates to capital, if we are at a point where we are concerned that we cannot afford all of the staff, I would pull the board together and have a conversation first about the use of fund balance before having a conversation about any types of layoffs. Now, with that said, that's going to be driven by the board. But what I can tell you right now is your revenues are going up and you have an extremely healthy fund balance.
We should clarify too, it's tax revenues going up, not all revenues are negative.
Understood.
The other revenues will probably decline. Net revenue overall will probably be even.
Yeah. Commissioner, did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Commissioner Curran?
Yeah, Brian, I believe that did. Yes.
Okay.
And I think there are a number of commissioners who are present today that are proud of the fact that we have a healthy fund balance.
Yeah, you should be. This institution's been very impressive as far as your ability to get capital projects done on a cash flow basis while still growing your savings.
Yes,
That's impressive.
proud of that we never had to borrow or have that interest added to us or anything.
However, I think we all need to remember that as we saw 6-8 weeks ago, a decision by the courts in Michigan can change the entire playing field if they want to. So, it's good to have money in the bank.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what somebody outside of our influence may do to us.
Yep. I can tell you that I've been trying to do outreach with cities and townships across Marion County, and a common theme that I've heard is counterintuitive. It's new housing starts. There is a significant amount of new construction going despite what's going on in the state and in the nation. And so I don't know how you explain it, but there's a common theme. The townships and the cities are seeing new construction, new investments, and as a result, you're seeing a positive and healthy local economy. But how do you explain it? I'm not sure.
I think part of the housing issue is pent-up demand, and given the low interest rates and then the outmigration out of the urban areas, if it bodes well for us. If only we can fix the broadband access issue, it'd probably be a real step forward for the region.
So, Madam Chair,
Yes.
again, as you all look at your schedule for tomorrow, if there's anything you need for us to do differently, just let us know. We're going to do our very best to stay on track as we did today and get you out of here right on time.
Okay. Do you have other spaces if any other commissioner wants to come? I need to come tomorrow. Do you all need to come tomorrow?
Yeah, I think they're planning on coming.
Yeah, so
I don't have my computer back, so I'll probably back. I'll plan on coming either way.
so if we do just as we did today, we are fine.
Yes.
But we are very limited on total space, and we're being very cautious about not exceeding the total number.
It's my first time being in a building.
Yeah, that's why Sharon was taking the minutes from her office, so that we can keep the number down to 10 in here.
Okay.
Sir, do you have something more, please?
I was just gonna give some numbers to Brian
Okay.
if it was
Thank you. I thought the room set up and the
so
snacks
that's
and
it.
everything.
Good.
Thank you all.
So if we're good, I'm gonna go ahead and end our live feed. Are we adjourning?
Yes, that's a job.
Adjourn?
Because this works so well and all that.
Almost
crazy
at
stuff.
noon there, Sharon.
Yeah, that's all around. And I'll keep this just like this.
That is up on the second,
Is that what we'll do?
first level is there, and then that room. Okay.
Sharon, did you get the adjournment at noon?
You adjourned at 11:59?
Okay, yeah.
Ooh-wee.
Okay.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Nice job pushing the buttons, Ryan.